transformations, ensuring progress and growth for all stakeholders. In the recent past, spearheading a range of groundbreaking initiatives and achieved significant milestones, Scope emerged as a reliable and valued partner for government and statutory bodies. International representation. Taking its vision beyond borders, Scope strengthened global ties, fostering partnerships and collaborative solutions. Scope has reinvigorated representation of Indian PSEs on international forums like OECD, IOE, ILO. As member of Council of Indian Employers, it is building the recognition of PSEs across the globe. Capacity building and skill development. Empowering the workforce through knowledge, skills, and expertise. Scope has been capacitating PSEs with workshops and programs that give them an edge globally. Scope continues to nurture future-ready talent. Programs and workshops. Innovative programs and workshops enhanced professional excellence, fostering leadership and growth. Scope offers programs and interventions to enhance skills and knowledge, including those focused on most pertinent subjects. Brand building. Strengthening visibility, enhancing outreach. Scope cemented its identity as a beacon of transformation. Because at Scope, innovation knows no bounds, where thinking beyond limits sparks groundbreaking transformations. Daksh, development of aspiration, knowledge, succession, and harmony. Scope, in collaboration with Capacity Building Commission (CBC), Government of India, launched Daksh Leadership Program for senior executives. First batch launched with McKinsey & Company and IIM Ahmedabad. Scope Social Interaction Center. Scope envisioned and built first-of-its-kind Scope Social Interaction Center, SSIC, at Scope Complex, Lothian Road, as the hub of PSEs. Advanced Global Leadership Program. Scope rechristened much revered Advanced Global Leadership Program in collaboration with IIM, Calcutta, and University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. Climate Action Initiatives. Scope and GIZ Germany, working together towards green skilling, organized series of regional workshops on climate co-benefit, and launched an advanced course on climate change and climate action for PSEs. Representation in International Labor Organization, ILO, governing body. DG Scope elected to ILO governing body for the term 2024 to 27 as one of the 14 titular employer members from 187 countries. Also part of Committee of Freedom of Association, CFA, commits to Global Coalition for Social Justice, collective efforts to ensure social justice and achievement of sustainable development goals. Scope as employer representative in Working Party on the new social contract for inputs to UN Social Summit. Scope Eminence Awards. Scope institutionalized Scope Eminence Awards after subsuming all its earlier awards into Scope Eminence Awards, felicitated by Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, Honorable Vice President of India in 2024. Memorandum of Understanding MOUs. Scope entered into MOU partnerships with ministries and prestigious organizations, including GIZ, HSCC, ICMAI, and ICSI, for the benefit of PSEs. Building on this strong foundation, Scope stands at the forefront of transformation, fostering innovation, and shaping a better future for all. In a world of constant change, where ideas shape the future. One vision stood strong. One mission drove transformation. Through challenges and opportunities, Scope redefined possibilities, empowering minds, inspiring change, and shaping the future. Over the last few years, Scope transformed vision into impact. Strategic collaboration and commitment to empower PSEs and our various stakeholders. Policy advocacy, driving meaningful change. By leading policy advocacy, Scope influenced meaningful transformations, ensuring progress and growth for all stakeholders. In the recent past, spearheading a range of groundbreaking initiatives and achieved significant milestones, Scope emerged as a reliable and valued partner for government and statutory bodies. International representation. Taking its vision beyond borders, Scope strengthened global ties, fostering partnerships and collaborative solutions. Scope has reinvigorated representation of Indian PSEs on international forums like OECD, IOE, ILO. As member of Council of Indian Employers, it is building the recognition of PSEs across the globe. Capacity building and skill development. Empowering the workforce through knowledge, skills, and expertise. Scope has been capacitating PSEs with workshops and programs that give them an edge globally. Scope continues to nurture future-ready talent. Programs and workshops. Innovative programs and workshops enhanced professional excellence, fostering leadership and growth. Scope offers programs and interventions to enhance skills and knowledge, including those focused on most pertinent subjects. Brand building. Strengthening visibility, enhancing outreach. Scope cemented its identity as a beacon of transformation. Because at Scope, innovation knows no bounds, where thinking beyond limits sparks groundbreaking transformations. Daksh, development of aspiration, knowledge, succession, and harmony. Scope, in collaboration with Capacity Building Commission CBC, Government of India, launched Daksh Leadership Program for senior executives. First batch launched with McKinsey & Company and IIM Ahmedabad. Scope Social Interaction Center. Scope envisioned and built first-of-its-kind Scope Social Interaction Center, SSIC, at Scope Complex, Lodhi Road, as the hub of PSEs. Advanced Global Leadership Program. Scope rechristened much-revered Advanced Global Leadership Program in collaboration with IIM, Calcutta and University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. Climate Action Initiatives. Scope and GIZ Germany, working together towards green skilling, organized series of regional workshops on climate co-benefit, and launched an advanced course on climate change and climate action for PSEs. Representation in International Labour Organization, ILO, governing body. DG Scope elected to ILO governing body for the term 2024 to 27 as one of the 14 titular employer members from 187 countries. Also part of Committee of Freedom of Association, CFA, commits to Global Coalition for Social Justice, collective efforts to ensure social justice and achievement of sustainable development goals. Scope as employer representative in Working Party on the new social contract for inputs to UN Social Summit. Scope Eminence Awards. Scope institutionalized Scope Eminence Awards after subsuming all its earlier awards into Scope Eminence Awards, felicitated by Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, Honorable Vice President of India in 2024. Memorandum of Understanding MOUs. Scope entered into MOU partnerships with ministries and prestigious organizations, including GIZ, HSCC, ICMAI, and ICSI, for the benefit of PSEs. Building on this strong foundation, Scope stands at the forefront of transformation, fostering innovation, and shaping a better future for all. In a world of constant change, in a landscape where innovation meets ambition and dreams pave the path to progress, a new era emerges. Infused with the spirit of creativity, Scope ventured to reimagine shared spaces for public sector enterprises. With no designated space for the fraternity to convene, the concept of Interaction Center took shape. But finding the perfect location for such a unique interaction center was not easy. After much deliberation, the Scope complex at Lodi Road emerged as the canvas for this transformative endeavor, due to its central location and existing infrastructure. Clearances from the Land and Development Office were sought, and after persistent efforts, permission was granted. With the expertise of NBCC, the foundation of this dream interaction center was laid. Despite halting construction due to government pollution directives, the project was completed within a record 6 months. Today, Scope Social Interaction Center stands as the beacon of innovation, sprawling over 10,000 square feet of space. SSIC isn't just a building, it's Scope's testament to the spirit of PSEs. Developed as a functional engagement facility with the broader objectives of social interaction, professional networking, capacity building, peer learning, and wellness. With an array of sports facilities, yoga and meditation spaces, a restaurant and coffee shop, offering a space for relaxation and socializing, a fully equipped elaborate offering a gateway to vast knowledge and discovery, meeting room cum entertainment room area, and a versatile multi-purpose hall ready to host diverse events. SSIC invites you to embark on a journey of enrichment. As the doors swing open, be invited to step into a world of endless possibilities and unforgettable experiences. In a landscape, ideas shape the future. One vision stood strong. One mission drove transformation. Through challenges and opportunities, Scope redefined possibilities, empowering minds, inspiring change, and shaping the future. Over the last few years, Scope transformed vision into impact. Strategic collaboration and commitment to empower PSEs and our various stakeholders. Policy advocacy, driving meaningful change. By leading policy advocacy, Scope influenced meaningful transformations, ensuring progress and growth for all stakeholders. In the recent past, spearheading a range of groundbreaking initiatives and achieved significant milestones, Scope emerged as a reliable and valued partner for government and statutory bodies. International representation. Taking its vision beyond borders, Scope strengthened global ties, fostering partnerships and collaborative solutions. Scope has reinvigorated representation of Indian PSEs on international forums like OECD, IOE ILO, As member of Council of Indian Employers, it is building the recognition of PSEs across the globe. Capacity building and skill development. Empowering the workforce through knowledge, skills, and expertise. Scope has been capacitating PSEs with workshops and programs that give them an edge globally. Scope continues to nurture future-ready talent. Programs and workshops. Innovative programs and workshops enhanced professional excellence, fostering leadership and growth. Scope offers programs and interventions to enhance skills and knowledge, including those focused on most pertinent subjects. Brand building. Strengthening visibility, enhancing outreach. Scope cemented its identity as a beacon of transformation. Because at Scope, innovation knows no bounds, where thinking beyond limits sparks groundbreaking transformations. Daksh, development of aspiration, knowledge, succession, and harmony. Scope, in collaboration with Capacity Building Commission (CBC), Government of India, launched Daksh Leadership Program for senior executives. First batch launched with McKinsey & Company and IIM Ahmedabad. Scope Social Interaction Center. Scope envisioned and built first-of-its-kind Scope Social Interaction Center, SSIC, at Scope Complex, Lodhi Road, as the hub of PSEs. Advanced Global Leadership Program. Scope rechristened much-revered Advanced Global Leadership Program in collaboration with IIM, Calcutta, and University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. Climate Action Initiatives. Scope and GIZ Germany, working together towards green skilling, organized series of regional workshops on climate co-benefit, and launched an advanced course on climate change and climate action for PSEs. Representation in International Labour Organization, ILO, governing body. DG Scope elected to ILO governing body for the term 2024 to 27 as one of the 14 titular employer members from 187 countries. Also part of Committee of Freedom of Association, CFA, commits to Global Coalition for Social Justice, collective efforts to ensure social justice and achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. Scope as employer representative in Working Party on the new social contract for inputs to UN Social Summit. Scope Eminence Awards. Scope institutionalized Scope Eminence Awards after subsuming all its earlier awards into Scope Eminence Awards, felicitated by Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, Honorable Vice President of India in 2024. Memorandum of Understanding MOUs. Scope entered into MOU partnerships with ministries and prestigious organizations, including GIZ, HSCC, ICMAI, and ICSI, for the benefit of PSEs. Building on this strong foundation, Scope stands at the forefront of transformation, fostering innovation, and shaping a better future for all. In a world of constant change, where ideas shape the future. One vision stood strong. One mission drove transformation. Through challenges and opportunities, Scope redefined possibilities. Empowering minds, inspiring change, and shaping the future. Over the last few years, Scope transformed vision into impact. Strategic collaboration and commitment to empower PSEs and our various stakeholders. Policy advocacy, driving meaningful change. By leading policy advocacy, Scope influenced meaningful transformations, ensuring progress and growth for all stakeholders. In the recent past, spearheading a range of groundbreaking initiatives and achieved significant milestones. Scope emerged as a reliable and valued partner for government and statutory bodies. International representation. Taking its vision beyond borders, Scope strengthened global ties, fostering partnerships and collaborative solutions. Scope has reinvigorated representation of Indian PSEs on international forums like OECD, IOE, ILO. As member of Council of Indian Employers, it is building the recognition of PSEs across the globe. Capacity building and skill development. Empowering the workforce through knowledge, skills, and expertise. Scope has been capacitating PSEs with workshops and programs that give them an edge globally. Scope continues to nurture future-ready talent. Programs and workshops. Innovative programs and workshops enhanced professional excellence, fostering leadership and growth. Scope offers programs and interventions to enhance skills and knowledge, including those focused on most pertinent subjects. Brand building. Strengthening visibility, enhancing outreach. Scope cemented its identity as a beacon of transformation. Because at Scope, innovation knows no bounds, where thinking beyond limits sparks groundbreaking transformations. Daksh, development of aspiration, knowledge, succession, and harmony. Scope, in collaboration with Capacity Building Commission (CBC), Government of India, launched Daksh Leadership Program for senior executives. First batch launched with McKinsey & Company and IIM Ahmedabad. Scope Social Interaction Center. Scope envisioned and built first-of-its-kind Scope Social Interaction Center, SSIC, at Scope Complex, Lothian Road, as the hub of PSEs. Advanced Global Leadership Program. Scope rechristened much-revered Advanced Global Leadership Program in collaboration with IIM, Calcutta, and University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. Climate Action Initiatives. Scope and GIZ Germany, working together towards green skilling, organized series of regional workshops on climate co-benefit, and launched an advanced course on climate change and climate action for PSEs. Representation in International Labour Organization, ILO, governing body. DG Scope elected to ILO governing body for the term 2024 to 27 as one of the 14 titular employer members from 187 countries. Also part of Committee of Freedom of Association, CFA, commits to Global Coalition for Social Justice, collective efforts to ensure social justice and achievement of sustainable development goals. Scope as employer representative in Working Party on the new social contract for inputs to UN Social Summit.
One vision stood strong. One mission drove transformation. Challenges and opportunities. Scope redefined.
Scope Eminence Awards. Scope institutionalized Scope Eminence Awards after subsuming all its earlier awards into Scope Eminence Awards, felicitated by Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, Honorable Vice President of India in 2024. Memorandum of Understanding MOUs. Scope entered into MOU partnerships with ministries and prestigious organizations, including GIZ, HSCC, ICMAI, and ICSI for the benefit of PSEs. Building on this strong foundation,
in the recent past, spearheading a range of groundbreaking initiatives and achieved significant milestones, Scope emerged as a reliable and valued partner for government and statutory bodies. International representation. Taking its vision beyond borders, Scope strengthened global ties, fostering partnerships and collaborative solutions. Scope has reinvigorated representation of Indian PSEs on international forums like OECD, IOE-ILO. As member of Council of Indian Employers, it is building the recognition of PSEs across the globe. Capacity building and skill development. Empowering the workforce with knowledge, skills, and expertise. Scope has been capacitating PSEs with workshops and programs that give them an edge globally. Scope continues to nurture future-ready talent. Programs and workshops. Innovative programs and workshops enhance professional excellence, fostering leadership and growth. Scope offers programs and interventions to enhance skills and knowledge.
You want access to something?
No, you're okay. We'll have we'll manage it. We'll take care.
A very warm good morning to all of you. Indeed, it's been warm since as compared to yesterday. So I guess even the weather is scared of decoding the budget. So on this lighter note, we welcome you today to Decoding the Union Budget 2026 being organized by Scope. As all of you know, that 1st February is a very significant day in the life of all Indian citizens, as the nation gathers to hear the Honorable Finance Minister unveil the Union Budget. This year, this day gained greater significance as India is amongst the very few nations who is showing positive growth despite of the difficult geopolitical scenario of the world. This made the announcements of the Union Budget 2026 more vital than ever before, and also makes it important for all of us to have a clearer understanding of the economics and the taxation of the budget. With this purpose, SCOPE has organized today's program, and we formally welcome all of you to it. It is indeed encouraging to see an overwhelming response that we have received for today's session. And to ensure that the valuable insights and knowledge shared today reaches maximum people across the country, the event is being telecasted live on the YouTube channel and social media handles of SCOPE. It is truly a pleasure to have with us an eminent panel of experts who have joined us today to demystify the Union Budget 2026. We welcome you all on the dais, all the eminent dignitaries on the dais, and I request my colleagues to please welcome the guests with a token of our gratitude. We welcome Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy, an eminent economist who has been with us and who has been decoding the economics part of the budget. We also welcome our Chairman SCOPE and CMD and NBCC, Mr. K.P. Mahadeva Swamiji, who has been the guiding spirit behind SCOPE endeavors. We welcome Mr. Divya Baveja, who is partner with Deloitte and has been with us for decoding the budget. We also welcome our Director General SCOPE, Mr. Atul Sopti, who is also a member of the governing body of the ILO and has been the force behind all our programs. We're also happy to share that we have some eminent people in the participants today. We would like to welcome Shri Pradeep Kumar Das ji, CMD IREDA and former Vice Chairman SCOPE. I would request my colleague to please welcome sir with a token of our gratitude.
Yes, sir.
We're also joined by a few board members of SCOPE online. We welcome all of them. And we are also joined by some very senior professionals who have been with public sector for quite some time and are now advising us in an advisory capacity all the time. So we will also welcome the former board members, Mr. Subodh Gupta ji, Shri M.K. Mittal ji, Shri Debendu Das ji, Shri Amarjeet Singh Bindra ji, and we have Shri Sudhakar Ramaiah ji with us in the audience. So welcome all of you. Now I would like to invite Shri Atul Sopti ji, Director General SCOPE, to please address the participants. And I'm sure we've all had tea, so we can welcome him with a round of applause.
A very good morning to all of you. Respected Mahadev Swami ji, Chairman SCOPE and CMD NBCC, Professor Bhanumurthy, Director, Madras School of Economics, a well-known economist, Mr. Divya Baveja, partner Deloitte, and other colleagues from Deloitte who are present here, my friend Mr. Das, Chairman and Main Director of IREDA, who is today a well-known name in the area of renewable energy, and all my colleagues who have been on the board also. Already he has mentioned the names. Welcome to all of you, and all the participants who have joined in person here and who are watching this on virtual mode also. Ladies and gentlemen, in fact, it's a privilege to be amongst such eminent speakers on a very pertinent topic of union budget. This is one every year a program which attracts a lot of attention, thanks to Bhanumurthy ji, who every time joins us with his views, thanks to our Deloitte team, who critically examine it, any input, any clarifications are required. They are the one who, their experts provide all the clarifications. Thank you. Thanks to Deloitte team and the Bhanumurthy ji for joining it here. You know that union budget is one thing which in fact gives a path for the economic priorities, growth strategies, and the policy direction. And this year has been all the more important not because it's for the first time probably in the history that it was presented on Sunday, but otherwise also because this is more of a reform-oriented, visionary, and futuristic budget, which focuses on the long term, how to take the country to become a Viksit Bharat, then the short-term objectives, short-term gains. That's very, very important thing. We were expecting that there would be swaps for the states which are going for elections, but I'm very happy that focus is more on the futuristic approach. Although our experts will be talking about the intricacies, details, nuances of the budget, just I will touch upon few points here which I found were very important from the public sector perspective. But first thing is that you know that union budget or any budget when it's formed, there could be two approaches. One is whether you have it investment oriented. Second thing is savings oriented. We have been in the country is taking the lead in from the last few years. The kind of investment and is going up. I mean, the path which has been taken is more of a investment oriented than the savings oriented. There was a time everybody used to wait what the new savings scheme is coming, but now the things have changed completely. You know that the capital expenditure or investment which has been projected to be 12.2 lakh crore, which is in fact almost, if you compare it with the RE, which is almost 11.5% more than the previous year. This is a very big thing. And you know, if you do the critical analysis, 85% of this has to be done the public sector enterprises. 85%. Okay, it includes railways and NHAI also. But in railways and NHAI also, a lot of things are done by public sector itself, all the holding stock and other things also. So onus will be on the public sector to achieve that capital expenditure. That's very, very important thing. And all of you are here, I'd just like to share with you that the public sectors today are contributing in revenue terms close to 411 billion US dollar. And just by saying the figure, that's not important. Just see the enormity. This is more than the GDP of Pakistan and Sri Lanka put together. Whole country GDP. The public sectors which are here, which are contributing 12% to Indian economy, they are contributing that much. 1.5 times more than the total GDP of New Zealand itself. And you see the kind of contribution which is being made by the public sector. So onus is on the public sector. There is purposely I am using this particular thing that there is a myth in the country which has been created over the year, the public sector is the loss making. But we have to break that myth. 78% of the public sector today are the profit making. As compared to, you see, even in the stock exchange, Indian stock exchange, only 2/3 or around 60-65% are making the profit. If you take the USA, out of listed company, only the 50% are making the profit. So public sectors are making profit, and use point, I'll not go to the figure. When I start talking about that, then so many things will be told about the figure. The point is, public sector have to play a major role in this investment-led budget. I was just going through the typical announcement which have been made in this particular area. The first thing is the focus on when we started listening to the Honorable Finance Minister's speech, first thing she mentioned, focus has to be investment, which I already talked about it. Focus has to be on manufacturing. She talked about the manufacturing focus. That's a very, very important thing, and it was mentioned that 7 strategic areas were defined. Incidentally, in majority of these areas, public sector will play a major role. We have got an enormous benefit today. We have got a lot of, this budget I will say, gives a lot of opportunities to the public sector, lot of responsibility to public sector. That's very, very important. You see the areas I like to mention, electronics is there, rare earth is there, semiconductor is there. Clearly, we have got plenty of opportunities. Then there is an area which have been talked about, the construction equipment, construction infrastructure equipment. Our country has been struggling, I know, in the infrastructure project for the tunnel boring machine. Time has come for the public sector to manufacture these tunnel boring machines. I think some of the companies like BHL had started thinking about it. I don't know what is the present status. But this is another opportunity which we need to seize. Container manufacturing is another thing, if we talk about the manufacturing. Next point, when this budget talks about it, the MSME, champion MSME, because any country, if it has to be successful, MSME has to play a major role. And you know, public sectors are mandated to procure almost more than 25% of its procurement, which is used procurement from the MSME, which we have been fulfilling this government requirement for which we have been mandated. And now the new things have come that you know the threats for more than 7 lakh crore have been made available to MSMEs, and the public sector have been mandated to begin with, that will be used for the payment cycle for this MSME. I'm sure our expert will be covering something about the threats concept that will be important for the people who are the beginner in this field to understand that how this discounting system would be used. Another point which came to my mind after reading the Honorable Finance Minister's speech was the carbon capture utilization and storage scheme. There, in fact, a lot of investment is going to be made. It is in the power, steel, cement, refinery, and chemicals, and we are present in all the areas. And just to share with you, in scope, we are doing in a big way in the area of the climate action. We have partnered with the GSF Germany. Number of capacity building and capacity building program have been conducted. The next one we are going to have in the Calcutta. And this is one subject, one topic which we have been talking again and again, and many of the public sectors are already onboarded with us, including SAIL, and NMDC and many other organizations. So this area which we are talking, we will be shouldering the responsibility from scope also, and will be joining hands with the public sector as and when required. Then if we talk about they talk about there is a 3 kartavyas which are mentioned. In one, the kartavya we have to take care of it has to be citizen centric. We have to talk about the socio-economic development, which include of education, which include of health, which includes the skilling. You know, close to 6,000 crores of the expenditure is being made by the public sector in the area of the CSR. So this is an area which we need to contribute a lot. Not only that, specific mention has been made for one of our PSU, Alimco. Alimco, basically the high-tech assisted devices for the physically challenged disabled citizens, that they will be manufacturing specific. So you see, over the complete budget, I am seeing there is a flavor that responsibility is being given to public sector. It's not responsibility alone. This is the opportunity also. A lot of opportunity is there. I think today, whatsoever is the $411 billion turnover, I'm saying, this will go up. In the next 2 years period, a lot of improvement, will be there, and we will be contributing a lot for making this country the great country, Viksit Bharat, in the coming years. Now, I will leave it to the experts and Professor Bhanumurthy ji to explain to you, to give you the details what are covered in the budget. But please make use of this opportunity. If any clarification you require, it will be our privilege along with them to provide you. In case we are not able to provide it here, afterwards you can send us any clarification you want. I know that, for example, in income tax, a lot of changes have, simplification has been done, but what exactly is simplification? Let's understand from them. So make use of it. Once again, welcome to all of you for this very important program which are being conducted by us, and thank you and enjoy the learning. Thank you very much, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for reflecting on how the budget is an opportunity and responsibility for the public sector. And this holds a lot of importance coming from Director General Scope, who is a visionary leader having a versatile professional experience of more than 4 decades. And given his successful election to the coveted position of governing body ILO, I think this holds a lot of importance because he is able to also foresee the international presence of the country through the public sector. With this, I would like to move forward and would like to welcome Shri K.P. Mahadeva Swamiji, CMD, NBCC and Chairman Scope to please address the participants with his industry experience and also what the industry expects from the budget. Shri Mahadeva Swamiji has a wide experience of over 3 decades and has held pivotal roles in the industry and in the public sector in India. And throughout his professional journey, Shri Swamiji has showcased his expertise by successfully managing high-value, complex, and diverse civil engineering projects nationwide. And this budget specifically holds importance for him. So over to you, sir. Eager to hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Professor N.R. Banumurthy ji, Atul Soti ji, DG Scope, Divya Bev ji, President and former chairmen and directors of PSUs, experts from Deloitte, senior officials from public sector, Scope, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Scope in playing a pivotal role, enhancing capacity building initiative and making sincere efforts for knowledge sharing among the public sector executives. The relentless effort made by Scope in ensuring greater and deeper understanding of pertinent subjects through its well-planned workshops and interaction has been commendable. Today, interaction on the budget further reflects on the value that Scope attached to meaningful, in-depth interactions. It is indeed pleasure for me, part of this budget, to interpret the long-term impact of announcements. This will not only help us understand the final print announced on 1st February 2026, but also enable us to look at the impact on us professionally and even personally. While much awaited exercise every year, this year is a particular budget announcement have been keenly looked forward to light of the geopolitical and economic changes and most importantly, the crucial point of India's growth journey. And I must say that statement have been full intent of clearly outlining the momentum of government seeks to give you critical pillars economy, namely manufacturing services. I compliment the government of India for presenting futuristic budget moving beyond short-term gains to long-term growth. While the expert present here would give you in-depth understanding of the budget announcement, for me as an industry man, the budget has been welcome changes in terms of an explicit focus integrating corporate action with national development. While there are many aspects that you would like to discuss and deliberate on, but as I am a construction man, for me what stands out is emphasis infrastructure development and use of new technology for the same. Significant allocation have been made transport, logistic, energy, urban development and connectivity for not only expanding capacities but interacting technology with the same. This would not only support the growth but also improve everyday efficiency and quality of life. If I see closely, these areas closely resonate with the domains of public sector and hence increased allocation reinforce greater responsibility on us. As a public sector, it gives me pleasure to see that this time the government has actually come forward and named specific organizations which have clear mandates. In fact, with the focus that has been shifted on MSME, public sector has been given the responsibility being a role model in using threats which could further strengthen MSME in economy and pave way for greater employment and economic growth. This may also require structural reforms, skilling of our people, ensuring greater technology integrations. But what stands out is that it has once again brought out strategic, irreplaceable role of the public sector in Indian development. Hence, it is important that all of you understand that the budget beyond numbers and also evaluate how does your organization fit into the scheme announced so that you can proactively prepare for action, also guide your leadership in understanding the policy direction and the budget impact on accountability and performance of expectations. I am sure that judicious mix of expert panel present here would give us deeper insight into various important and strategic aspects of the budget, which will help us to plan our organization role achieving desired economic plan. Here, I would like to compliment Scope for always presenting best possible experts, and today is no different given the experienced Professor Bhanumurthy and regulatory clarity of Deloitte. I am sure that participant will make much enriched after this session. I encourage all of you optimize opportunity, not only understand but also interact to dispel concern and seek clarification. With this, I wish all the best and hope that this would provide important learning for all. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving a very clear perspective on how public sector can play an important role in implementing the various aspects of the budget, especially the infrastructure aspect. Now, as we begin delving deeper into the understanding of the union budget, let us start by getting an insight into the significance of the policy and the economic updates that will enable us to understand the nation's priorities and strategic objectives in a more simple language. So for this, I would like to invite Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy ji for his inputs and insight. Presently serving as director in Madras School of Economics, Dr. N.R. Bhanumurthy has held several key positions in the education and research sector, including as first Vice Chancellor of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar School of Economics, University, Bengaluru. He has authored a number of research papers and books and has served as a consultant on the board of various international organizations, including the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and the ILO, and has been part of several key government committees. So over to you, sir, and we look forward to your insights.
Chairman of Scope, Shri Mahadev Swamiji, DG Atul Sopti, team from Deloitte, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank Scope for giving me this opportunity to be part of this event. I think I've been part of this event for quite a number of years, so a lot of familiar faces as well. Thank you so much. I don't know why Scope calls me every year, but I think I make some points which sometimes becomes a little uncomfortable for many, but as Scope keeps adjusting with whatever I say. But I think if you look at last 3-4 days, it has been a very interesting days, right? I think we didn't spend our weekend also, right? We spent weekend in our offices. In fact, it went up to late night to understand what exactly happened in the budget. And the next day night, everything changed, right? I mean, we completely see a different discourse in the country that the stock market went down by 2,000 points, and next day by evening it went up 3,500 points. So we are seeing a kind of a swing in the whole discourse in the economy. And we don't know where to start and where to address, what to address. And last 3 days we had 3 big documents. One is the economic survey, and then we had finance commission, then we had the budget. So imagine 3 documents reading in 3 days. So we're all very tired of that actually. But then at the same time, you do see a kind of a link with all the 3 documents. And it's also not only linked for the current financial year, for the next financial year, budget is meant for the next financial year. But I think as the finance minister very clearly taken, this budget or these documents are not meant for 26-27 alone. This is meant for the long term. I think she has taken a long shot with the budget, 2047, the Vikasit Bharat. So in that context, I thought I will bring some of my views on all the 3 documents that we have. And while listening to the budget, in fact, I only wrote 2 pages. Usually I write 20-30 pages in the budget presentation time. This time I wrote only 2 pages. That means there's not really much that's coming from the budget speech. But when you look at the documents, I think a lot more is there. In fact, we need to keep reading the documents many more times. And last year I was telling to Deloitte team that, going from whatever is happening right now, we may not have much to discuss on the taxes side. But this year again, there's so much work has been given to Deloitte to really look at what exactly happened in the document, and I thought that was slightly overwhelming in the sense I could not really grasp what exactly happening in the budget speech. There's so much of tinkering happened here and there, but overall, I should be the happiest man. For the reason, if you look at the last 3 documents that I said, and some of you are listening to me for some time, there are few things that I've been talking about for a long time, and they're all there in these 3 documents. One is capital expenditure, public capital expenditure, as a strategy, as DG also pointed out. In 2014-15, the capital expenditure was just about 2 lakh crore, which is less than 1% of the GDP at that point of time, or about 1% of GDP. Now we are talking about 12.2 lakh crore. And this is one thing which was actually part of the original FRBM Act of 2003, where we are supposed to have capital expenditure going every year at 3% of GDP. Now, I'm glad that last 3 years, we are seeing that capital expenditure is actually above 3%. And this is one major reason why India is called a bright spot in a troubled global economy. Okay, and we think that 7% growth is still not sufficient. And if you look at the economic survey, the chief economic advisor clearly says it's an oasis. India is an oasis in a troubled global economy. So you can use many phrases for that, but all these things are actually driven by the government capital expenditure strategy. And I would like to take credit for that, because I think all these strategies based on my study that I had done in 2012, where the capital expenditure multiplier is larger than the revenue expenditure multiplier. So I think that is something that I'm extremely happy that it's continuing for some time. Then the second topic is about, by the way, like if you look at the last budget and this budget, the government said that you are going to look at only the debt, public debt as a anchor, not the fiscal deficit. But I think in the press brief, they clarified that, okay, you still have the fiscal deficit as the instrument. So as some of you know, the debt is basically a stock variable, okay? Deficit is a flow variable. Now, even if you have a debt as your anchor, you still need an instrument to address the debt over a period of time. Now, last budget said that we will achieve the debt to GDP ratio by 50 plus or minus 1% by 2030-31 at the end of the 16th Finance Commission. Now, we have argued that that is not the way. You need to have instruments. You still need to have instruments of fiscal deficit. You still have to have an instrument of revenue deficit. So we argued that we need to go back to the original FRBM Act of 2003, where they argue that the fiscal deficit should be at 3%, revenue deficit should be 0. That means you should not borrow for consumption purpose. And the debt to GDP ratio would be brought down to 60%. The general government, both center and state together, and the center would be about 40%, the state would be about 20%. Now, this whole mechanism happens when you actually bring down the revenue deficit to 0 and increase the capital expenditure to 3%. So I have done this study for last 4 Finance Commission, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th Finance Commission. In fact, if you look at the Finance Commission report, there is a debt deficit path that is being provided. Again, it is based on my study that I have submitted to the 16th Finance Commission. So where they say that the fiscal deficit should be brought down to 3.5% at the central government level. So given that kind of an argument, what the budget has done is they clearly bring the fiscal deficit from 4.4% in the current year to 4.3% for the next year. But I think what is more important, which my study has been arguing for some time, is that there is a need for improving the quality of expenditure. When I say quality of expenditure, the quality of expenditure should be more on the capital side compared to the revenue deficit side. I think that is what the original philosophy of Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act. So that is very clearly been shown in this budget also. Although 4.3% is the fiscal deficit that they are trying to fix, but if you look at the effective fiscal deficit, effective capital expenditure, now within the 4.3 fiscal deficit, about 3.1% supposed to be capital expenditure, and 1.5% would be about around 1.5 with the revenue deficit, and then there is a borrowing, there is a capital receipts of about 3.3%. So overall it comes to 4.3% as your fiscal deficit. But if you look at the effective capital expenditure, for the first time, the effective capital expenditure is more than the fiscal deficit. So 4.3 is the fiscal deficit that they are planning. Now the effective capital expenditure is about 4.4%. So this is again a first time you see in the budget, and that clearly says that we are moving from revenue deficit to capital expenditure. So I should be happy about it because this is what I've been doing for the past 12 years. So I'm extremely happy that we are taking this path so that we will get a much better growth. And if you look at the economic survey, I don't know how many of you really captured that particular point. The economic survey argues that the potential growth of this country has actually increased from 6.5% to 7%. Now, 0.5% increase in the potential growth over a period of 5-6 years is a substantial improvement. Okay, and all this happened because of the kind of the fiscal policy that we have. And even for that, I did some work for the Finance Ministry to fix that 7% potential growth for the country. But 7% is that sufficient? We all know that the Vikasit Bharat, which is a very long call. Now, if you look at many studies or many estimations, if you take a conservative number that if you want to become Vikasit Bharat by 2047, you need to grow at least at 8% on an average for the next 22 years. Now we are talking about the potential of 7% right now. Now imagine 7 to 8%, how much distance that we need to travel. In fact, this is exactly what the economic survey points out. Now, how to bridge the gap of 1% on an average in the real GDP growth over a period of 22 years is absolutely a major challenge for Indian economy. And then the other part of this thing that I said in the beginning is that, again, I've been arguing for the past 6-7 years about public expenditure efficiency. I know in many budget discussions, you will see discussion about, it has increased some allocation to this sector, some allocation to that sector. So these are the kind of discussion that happens in the overall budget, and we forget it what happens after that. Tomorrow we forget what happened to the budget. But I think as an economist, I'm more interested in what happens at the end of March 31st, 2027 than today, what happened to the allocations. And this is exactly what we have been arguing, that we need to have a strategy to have, measure to improve the public expenditure efficiency over a period of time. Now, allocation is one part of the story. It's only a necessary condition where you can, you say that I'm allocating that. In fact, if you look at FY26, compared to last year budget numbers, this year, if you look at the revised estimation, there is a decline in the expenditures of about 1.5 lakh crore across the line departments. So that shows that, the focus should be more on efficiency rather than allocation. So again, the Finance Commission, 16th Finance Commission report talks about efficiency. Okay, I've written a small piece. All along, the Finance Commissions argue for equity, like, you have a horizontal equity, vertical equity, all sorts of things. But then, for the first time, the Finance Commission talks about efficiency parameters. And they brought efficiency in the horizontal distribution of the proceeds across the states. And for the past 3-4 commissions, have been seeing that the fast growing states have been penalized. Okay. Now, this commission, as I said, some of the study that I've done for the state level public expenditure efficiency, and this commission has clearly mentioned that efficiency also need to be taken care. Otherwise, there is a kind of a disincentive for the states to really perform better, because they take that income distance as a major criteria. So if you are growing very fast, you get less share from your tax proceeds. Now, this time what happened, the same criteria have been taken, contribution to GDP has been given about 10% weightage. So in that sense, it is actually helping the states to perform better. And they also disincentivize some of the states which are not performing well by removing the revenue deficit grants. Why I'm bringing out this issue is that all these three reports, survey, Finance Commission, and the budget, has huge implications going forward to this economy. So they have discontinued the revenue deficit grants for the states for a simple reason that it is actually working as a disincentive for the states to perform better. And I think the underlying point here is it is the efficiency that is being given more important, and I think it comes to even CPSEs also, that ultimately all of us have to improve our efficiency going forward. And I think even the Finance Commission talks about efficiency in the CPSEs. I'm sure some of you are interested. Maybe you want to look at that particular chapter. The third is about the duties. All along I've been arguing that, you cannot do this when you are actually increasing your footprint across the world, putting the import duties. One of the reasons why Mr. Trump and the United States got agitated was that we are putting more duties on US imports. And I think even in the budget, Honorable Finance Minister talked about how to restructure those duties. And I think what we have seen on Monday is a reflection that, you are in the direction. And I mean, even a person like Arvind Pangaria, who was Finance Commission chairman, one of the things that he had for the government is to address these import duties. That is something that is being addressed. And I hope we take that direction where we don't really impose duties and create kind of a negative incentive for the domestic industry. In terms of budget, as I said, we are seeing that capital expenditure growing much faster than what I assumed. But one thing that I felt which is lacking in all the three documents, although passingly they talk about, is India is like as DG pointed out, we are shifting to investment model. But I think there is a causality missing there, which again I've been arguing, even yesterday I was arguing in one of the meetings, that if you really want to achieve the Vikasit Bharat, that 8% going from 7 to 8%, you cannot achieve without improving the domestic savings. That is one thing which is missing across all the three documents. And on my own study, we talked about we need to increase the savings at least by 3 to 4 percentage points of GDP over a period of time. Right now, we talk about a savings rate of 28% with an investment rate of 30%. Okay. Now, if you are having 7% potential growth, it means that your incremental capital output ratio is about 4.5, right? That is the simple arithmetic that we have. But I think what is important is we need to go back to 4 as an incremental capital output ratio. That is, then only you get 7.5 or 8% potential growth. And we've been arguing that domestic savings has to be encouraged. But some of the policies in the past 3-4 years actually discourages domestic savings. Okay, and this is one area I've been working on to argue that we should have policies even at the cost of some fiscal incentives. I think many of you are here. We all enjoyed that infrastructure bonds or taxes, all those things we had. But right now, anything that we do, we get into tax debt. So we've been saying that India is a savings-led investment growth model. It is not an investment growth model. It is a savings-led investment growth model. So if you want to achieve 8% growth, if your incremental capital output ratio is 4.5, multiplied by 8, how much it is? 36%. You need to have 36% investment rate for a country like us if you want to get 8% potential growth that we want by 2047. So, and at the same time, if it is 36% in the investment rate, you need to have at least 33 to 34% domestic savings. Okay, because you cannot have more than 2% of current account deficit. We cannot depend on foreign savings more than 2 to 2.5% because it has its own uncertainty or volatility that particularly the Reserve Bank of India faces. So I think we need to have that savings rate of 33-34%. So this is one area where even when I met some of the policy makers, I said we need to focus more on domestic savings. So that is one part I thought that is missing. But otherwise, in terms of expenditures, again, there are many people argued that why should we bring down the public debt to GDP ratio, particularly a growing economy like ours, we can run a little more public debt to GDP ratio. But I have one number which can tell you, in the whole fiscal math right now, one thing which is very weak is the increasing interest payments. Okay, the interest payments right now is about 1/4 of your total expenditure, about 26%. It is increasing. It was 1/5 of the total expenditure 3 years back, about 20%. Right now it has gone up to 26%. Okay, for every 100 rupees that you generate revenue, about 40 rupees are actually going for interest payments. Okay, this is in the context of where the Reserve Bank of India has brought down the interest rate by 125 basis points over a period of 1 year. And this is something is going to be a huge pressure point for the fiscal policy going forward. So, I think it's very important for us to bring down, the debt to GDP ratio such a way that, you bring down your, interest payments going forward. The other thing that the economic survey pointed out, and also the budget, is the weak state finances. I know you must be reading about union budgets, but I thought I'll also bring something related to state finances. So I think more than 50% of the states are actually facing huge fiscal crisis. Not because they don't have money, but the way, I'm one of the fellows who argue that post 14 Finance Commission, the states are sitting with huge reserves, huge resources. Only thing is that they don't know how to spend it. And I think this is where the budget talked about, there's a scheme, we call it a SASKI scheme, right? The capital support for the state governments. And that is one thing that has been increased right now. It was 1.2 lakh crore 2 years back. Now this year it has been increased to 2 lakh crore. And again, I'm one of the votary of this, where you provide more resources to states, particularly for spending on capital expenditure, and that is one way one can really bring down the interest payment burden on the states. And this budget also focused more on that. So I saw a lot of mention about CPSE, both in the budget and also in the economic survey and also in the Finance Commission report. Maybe you should have a separate discussion on that, the references that we saw in all the three documents. But in terms of revenues, I know the Deloitte team is going to talk a little more on that. If you look at the budget estimations, for the past 2 years, again, they're a little bit of conservative in terms of the revenue projections. The revenue buoyancy that they talk about is only about 0.8, which is less than the last 3-year average. And in my view, I think that may be better to be less conservative than you project more than what you think you can achieve. So you overachieve next year is something that is better. In that sense, being conservative is fine, but there is only one place where I think CPSE may have some issue, like they talk about disinvestments, right? 80,000 crore is the disinvestment. And now compared to last year, about 36,000 crore, I keep saying that please don't include that in the fiscal calculation. You do it differently, right? There is the weakest fiscal marksmanship is in the disinvestment number. Every year you see that whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but if you look at the calculations, it actually disturbs the whole fiscal math. So I keep telling that don't put that in the fiscal calculation. You put it outside or you use that for something else. Rather than you release some of the debt that you have, whatever money you get from the disinvestment. But I think you keep saying, but they keep doing it. So that's something. And one last point, which again, some of the work is being recognized, is on the structural transformation. Again, there is their reference in the budget also. When I say structural transformation, one of the long-term target for this country is that increasing the manufacturing sector to 25% of the total GDP. In fact, CPSEs have a much larger role there, and we have completed 25 years of that target actually. Around 20, I think in the year 2000, this particular target came out of increasing the share of manufacturing to 25%. Now, over a period of time, what we are seeing, we are only seeing the decline in the share of manufacturing. So, I have been arguing that this needs a completely different focus, you need to identify what, constrain the manufacturing sector. In one of the recent meetings also I raised it, and I think again CPSEs have a much larger role here, is that, in a typical production function analysis, we talk about capital labor, right? I mean, there is, if you look at the textbook, you say a Cobb-Douglas production function, we talks about capital and labor as the input, but there's one important input which is important for the manufacturing sector is the land. We talk about factors of production, land, labor, capital, enterprise and all, but in the analytical framework, you don't find land is playing a major role. The assumption is that land is unlimited and land is available, but these are all good for advanced countries where there's no constraint on the land. But I think when it comes to India, when it comes to manufacturing sector, land becomes an important aspect. And in fact, I was doing some analysis of at the state level, where the investment, I'll take about foreign direct investment or any investment that you talk about in the manufacturing sector, and you put a cross tabulation between the states as well as the land availability, most of the states will be on that 45-degree line. Okay, what it means is that and then if you look at the southern region and the western region, they all will be on the top of that 45-degree line. The rest of the regions will be in the bottom of the 45-degree line. What it means, the investment go to a place where there is a clarity on the land records. Okay, so I think this is one area that we need to really focus. And I'm glad the economic survey talks about it. In fact, the SASKI scheme that I told you, that where the central government provides interest-free loan to the state governments, 2 lakh crore for the capital expenditure, is also linked to the land records right now. Okay, up to that level we could bring it, and I'm glad that that part is being brought out in the SASKI scheme, and the budget also focuses a little more on that. But going forward, we need to have, we argued in the Finance Commission, in the 16th Finance Commission, that should become one of the conditionalities for the state governments. Somehow that is not being brought out, but I think going forward, if at all, we need to increase the share of manufacturing sector to 25%, bringing land and land records. And so I argued for a new land reforms. Land reforms in our textbooks, fragment the land, right? In my research, land reform is consolidate the land, have the records of the land. So that is one way you can actually improve your public expenditure efficiency. I'll give one example. The most popular scheme in Indian recent union government is the PM Kisan. Okay, initially for the first 2 years, the PM Kisan proceeds were more going towards south and western region compared to other region, because you don't have land records. I have some land, I also got PM Kisan, right? So it is vacant, but I still get it. So that is the level of issue that we have at the regional level. I'm glad that the Honorable Finance Minister has mentioned that they'll be incentivized for the states to really bring the land as part of the whole discourse. And one last point, I don't know whether I spoke last year, but the Finance Minister talked about committee on banking, standing committee on banking. Maybe I'm the only fellow arguing that we need to have more banks, not less. We need to have more public sector banks, not less. So this is a very minority kind of argument in Delhi circle, but I have been shouting for a long time. The kind of argument that we have seen in the economic survey, one big chapter is on the cost of capital. Okay, even on the capital side, we have not done much. Of course, labor we are talking about, we just had the labor code, but on the capital side, we still have a very, very long way to go in terms of providing resources to the productive sectors. Now, the current argument is that bring some 2-3 big banks and close some of the banks. But I think, as I said, the savings is also a function of financial intermediation. Now, the reason why we are seeing a decline in the savings is also because of decline in the financial intermediation. So my argument is that I think the Committee on Banking, I hope they will go in that direction where we will see more banks in the system, we will see more public sector banks, because public sector banks have a much broader objective than the private sector banks. So I think that, and my current focus would be more on that, to see that, we'll have more financial institutions so that we'll have better savings rate in the country. And the cost of capital is one thing that, in fact, all of you should read that particular chapter in the economic survey. Very nicely done. And it says that, achieving Vikasit Bharat, not achieving Vikasit Bharat will also depend heavily on this cost of capital. In fact, even today, comparable countries like India and Indonesia, I think the economic survey points out that number, I also have here. So the survey highlights India's 10-year bond yield at 6.7%, which is higher than Indonesia. Imagine the Indonesia is also completing 100 years now. There is a golden Indonesia or something happening in 2045. Now, compared to Indonesia, the Indonesia is getting at 6.3%. See, even the comparable countries like ours, we are having the yield rate higher than Indonesia. This I think they highlight in economic survey. So I think these are some of the issues that we really need to capture. I know I'm taking slightly broader view. As I said, cost of capital is one thing, land is another thing, ease of doing business, and productivity and competitiveness. These are the 4 themes of the economic survey, which is extremely useful for all of us to understand, and they also provide some solutions how we need to overcome. But one of the things, as I said about the land, I have already told you, and the cost of capital also, I was just saying that I think we need to have more banks, not less, and as I said, incremental capital ratio. Right now it is 5. We need to improve to 4.5 or maybe further to 4. I don't know, some of the people who have seen the planning commission era, we know that in our textbooks we used to say incremental capital ratio is 4. It's fixed. Now it has deteriorated to 5, rather 5.1 right now. That means you need more capital to produce same unit of output which we used to produce 20 years back. So that shows that there is a deterioration in the overall productivity of this country. I think that is where we need to really focus. And as I said in the beginning, Honorable Finance Minister has actually taken a very long call in the budget, not limiting herself to 26-27, rather for the long term. And there are many more micro policy measures which are there in the budget. I'm sure once we get into some of the, and one thing, last point, Swadeshi. I think this is one thing that I thought I will highlight, and I'll stop there. Many of us understood Swadeshi in a very different fashion, right? I think we always thought that you close the borders, but I think in the economic survey very clearly argued Swadeshi becomes a defensive as well as offensive policy lever, a means to ensure continuity of production in the face of external shocks, and a pathway to build enduring national capabilities that reinforce economic sovereignty. I think this is one thing which is generally misunderstood in the context. An economic survey brings out some clarity, and they also bring out some examples how a country like China has almost similar to what we are talking about Swadeshi model. So given the kind of current context, what economic survey argues is that we need to strengthen our domestic capabilities, and we need to strengthen our factor markets such a way that we can improve productivity and we can also improve competitiveness, and that is the only way we can really go for 8% growth. So as I said, it's a very long document and very wide document, and of course there are many other things, like you talk about urbanization, infrastructure, financial sector, so many things are there. But as I said, it is not limited to financial year 26-27, rather it is for the long term. And I think Prime Minister also mentioned that this is the first budget of the second quarter of the current century, which is meant for Vikasit Bharat. I think that is the right way to express what the budget that we got this time. But my request to all of you is that we need to see all the 3 documents together. There is a lot of consistency, there is a continuity, and there is a vision for 2047. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for trying to make it simple, and I'm sure most of us have got what you were trying to say. Now, before I open the floor for Q&A for Professor, I would request our CMD, IREDA, Pradeep Dasji, to kindly say a few words and give his observations.
Respected guest on the dais as well as off the dais, I will not take the name. First of all, I was called to speak all of a sudden. So my talk will be like after listening to Professor Vanamurthy and Sopti. I think you have taken the main course. Mind will be desert. Whether you like habit, if you are having diabetic, ignore it. If your family rested during the home stay, still you want to stick out, take the diabetic, despite having diabetic the sweets, then also you can take it on a lighter note. I don't think much to say, but a couple of things I will take. What Vanamurthy said, that I would like to wait and watch in March rather than observing now. I'll give one example of my department, MNRE. I'm working for IREDA since 5.5 years, that is coming under MNRE. The beginning of 2025, government has announced that we will be adding 50 gigawatt and country added 49.12 gigawatt. I think against 50, if it is 49.12, so that is perfect achievement. And if I give you the data of renewable last 5 years, CAGR of 22.6% growth is happening. And we are talking of 8% GDP overall Indian economy. Today we have almost sure of 7%. Safely we are assuming 7% growth. 8 certainly appears to be difficult. Again, if I touch the renewable target, what was 5 years back, what was 10 years back, it was appearing to be quite unachievable, and we have achieved many of the renewable 2030 target even much before 5 years. So renewable is just one aspect of it, one of the part of the energy, and energy will be required for every sector for the development to make it Viksit Bharat. And why renewable energy? Because development of what cost? We have to decarbonize and develop, then only we will have a sustainable world. Then only we will have a sustainable economy. And I'm sure the holistic approach, the way the government of India has built up the ecosystem in last 11-12 years, probably result of that is today we are in a position to make a budget for 25 years. Earlier, our condition was that we'll be, if we are making a budget here, at least we'll have a 5-year goal at best maximum. Beyond that, nobody was thinking. And as a matter of fact, in financial market in India, when cost of capital is talked upon, we don't have any product beyond 5 years. You cannot hedge your risk beyond 5 years. Forget about Forex. And if you see the Forex, probably we all believe and perceive that all the developmental agencies, World Bank, JICA, KfW, I'm taking few names, any agencies, we consider them, they are giving a concessional fund. Last 5 years, IREDA has prepaid their loan, not taken their loan. We have availed the loan from domestic market, ensure the Atmanirbhar Bharat and cost of capital at a minimum level. And cost of capital is the key for any kind of development. And to ensure cost of capital, your borrowing has to be minimum. To ensure borrowing, you need to ensure a good corporate governance in place. Without good corporate governance, nobody can ensure you, nobody can support you. Any lender, even somebody wants to give you a grant, they want that governance should be in place. And when you talk about governance, I think public sector, which was generally ignored, but IREDA has set a benchmark in the country. So for your information, we are the only company in the country who is giving every quarter full audited accounts. And we are the only company, banking, non-banking company, who is giving quickest result. We have a number of banks in the country. All private sector, gigantic banks, so much of high tech, still we are quickest in reporting the result. If one public sector can turn around in last just 5.5 years, probably most of you might not be knowing before 5.5 years whether what was IREDA and all. And nobody in IREDA has imagined that after 5.5 years we can become benchmark in the country. A PSU can become benchmark in the country. And probably the opportunity and challenge what DG Scope has said, we have huge opportunity and we have huge challenge. If we can change our mindset and way we govern, we do a lot of things. We have already done that RTP, reform, perform and transform. But we have to go to the next phase, inform. What we have done, we have to inform to the authority, to the agency, to the policy maker, to the decision maker, to the ecosystem who is going to help us to carry us forward. I think India is playing a very key role in this, and in the time to come, being an integral part of government, I think I am quite confident the sector in which we are working, the target which we have, will be achieving much before that. And all the PSUs, those who are working, if they can change mindset and adapt and change the culture and mindset, in order to capture the opportunities what have been entrusted to us, then we can do wonder. And PSU was having a commanding height and backbone of the economy, and I'm sure next 4 or 5 years we are going to prove it again. And when DG has said that substantial capex is going to come out from public sector, and mind it, the highest level of authority in the country is watching you very closely, watching us very closely. And I think India is a huge land of opportunity. We may limited exposure to the overseas market in last couple of years post our IPO. I find it, you go to any country, earlier recently we had been to Japan, huge amount of enthusiasm, and post our personal visit, our borrowing cost has gone 10 basis points cheaper. So we need to communicate them what we are doing, how we are doing, and what is the way forward. Any overseas investment, if you want to bring in and to reduce your cost of capital, then you need to ensure a sustainable trust factor in their mind. Then only you can achieve. And that can only achieve by your sustainable good governance and consistent performance. I will not take much time. I think I'm not an economist, so talking after them, it requires a lot of courage and energy and stamina. Rather, I will be part of you to be questioning them or trying to know from him, because it is a rare opportunity. And it is my fourth or fifth visit and listening to you. Only last year I missed. I was traveling for QIP overseas. And I appreciate and love one thing in you, that you are very upfront what you speak. And I am quite well known in the industry for that also. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, IREDA has really turned around, and under Sir's leadership, and Scope is also organizing a session, and IREDA has been very kind to run their senior representative on how climate finance can be taken from the private and the public sector institutions. We are holding this on 20th of this month, February, in Kolkata. The details are available on our website, so please do visit. Thank you, sir, once again. And now I open the floor for questioning to Professor Bhanumurthy. So we welcome any questions that we have before we take the online questions. Since all of you are here and have taken the effort, we give you the first chance there. So, okay, in the meantime, as... So in the meantime, yes, sir. So both, sir, please go ahead. Sir, can you please use the mic? Yeah.
Good morning, Professor Bhanumurthy. I'm Subodh Gupta, former director of PHL. As you have really pointed out regarding the share of manufacturing in GDP, it has gone down and it's going down. And land is one of the issues we have, really talked about. But I think the more critical issue is technology. What I have felt over the years, I was in BHL, and it's a very giant manufacturing company, as you know. So from where to bring the technology in the skilled manpower? That is the core challenge what I see. Even land can be managed. Land is not that big as, the other two major issues. So how to really, tackle these two major issues? You see, even when I was at BHL, I used to talk about, setting a forging shop. The critical forging still we import from Europe, from China. Even if they stop, exporting this, critical forgings, our thermal power plant will shut down. Will not have any forgings. I would always bother, how to manage the forgings. 660 megawatt, 800 megawatt, we are totally dependent on our outside world. The major problem, what I see, is really a technology and the skilled manpower. And that, we need to really be innovative and R&D focused things, and certain things have to be done. Land, it's my personal view, I don't think land is a major challenge. Because if you look at the land bank of PSUs, huge land is available. When government starts, doing on that front, a lot of things can be done, but these two, I just want your, view on that. Thank you.
As a PSU, you can say that land is not a problem because you are all sitting on the land banks. But if you look at the private sector, if you look at least the state I am coming from, Tamil Nadu, the reason why Tamil Nadu become favorite destination for private investments or foreign direct investment, apart from many other things, it is the land. For the government, you may not have a problem with the land, you can just issue some decree and take it up. That's not but if it comes to private sector, particularly foreign investors, I think maybe we have to work with them and see what kind of difficulty they come with technology. For them, technology is not an issue, capital is not an issue. But what is required, the labor as well as the land. You know, why Foxconn, they went to the place called Sri Perumbudur. And I think some of us have to visit that place where the new economy is actually growing in a big way, is because the state government is trying to, incentivize the land and all those things, but you cannot keep on doing for every industry. Now, if you look at Andhra Pradesh, now again, this whole data centers, all of them, the new government is trying to, provide the land. So that becomes a major attraction for the foreign investors, particularly those who already have the technology. So that is the point. I mean, my question is, why these states? Why not other states? That is the point.
Can I add that because whenever any central policy announcement happens and any industry grows or back up is that central policy, if the land, since land becomes the state subject, so central policy until unless the state aligned with that policy of the center, till such time that economic push doesn't happen. What you are saying is absolutely right, which states have aligned. Like in PM Kusum, agriculture, solarizing in the agriculture, Maharashtra took a very big initiative that they brought in a different policy altogether for the land accumulation the state is doing through ASPB, and that is getting up in a jet speed now, which is other states are not doing. Some states started following it. PSU land bank is completely altogether different thing. That cannot be compared as a case study.
No, I just want to give one more example. Recently there was one article in the Hindu. I don't know how many of you know Karnataka's Bhumi project. That's the first project in this country where a state has initiated, digitization of land. And it was done by none other than Mr. Nandan Nilekani. So the reason why, again, Karnataka, the spread of industry, again, it is not limited to Bangalore, right? I mean, it's spread of industry is actually happening because of you have statewide, you have a better predictable land record. I think that is one reason. There is also one more. There is a nightlight data is there. Again, if you see Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, the spread of nightlight across the states is much wider compared to other states. Maybe other states also doing well, but I think it is limited to some pockets where there is some, I don't want to get into that urbanization issue. I don't know how many of you have houses in Delhi, how many khatas people are having. I mean, it's completely mess in this country, particularly when it comes to land and land records.
Actually, what land bank I was talking about, actually it's a misnomer that land belongs to PSUs. If you see, the land was given to PSUs for a specific purpose. Then they are not, still in the books of, the respective PSUs. They are still the government land. For a specific purpose, still the PSUs are there. Land can be taken from the PSUs, excess land, whatever they are not using, and can be given to private sector. My point was that, getting technology, appears to be easy, but not that easy also. Because nobody wants to part with technology. If you part with technology, then, everything goes away. So, getting technology, I also foresee an equal challenge.
I think the effort is still on the technology side.
Because we need to do it our own, on the innovation R&D front. So, how, it's a long kind of a journey. You see, 20 years back, China foreseen, the rare earth processing kind of a things. They started opening universities, colleges and all that. 20 years, the communists thought of 20 years back how, they are going to do in rare earth materials. And just see what is their position now in the world. They are controlling the entire thing.
I think that is one reference in the budget.
Yeah.
A committee on linking education to service or something like that. So maybe that will look at.
And moreover, China cannot be compared in true sense and spirit. Are they communist? Let us accept it.
Yeah.
Why you are saying communist to them? They are much more autocratic. Anything they decide, they implement immediately. But that doesn't happen in a communist.
They also have much better markets.
Yeah. So it's. I think India is a quite complex. It represents a whole globe. You have developed economy like place like Bombay and all. You'll find it developed economy. Rule regulation norms will be something different. You have Indonesia kind of in developing. You have tribal areas which are underdeveloped. So our federal system and ecosystem is so huge. It cannot be in toto compared with either Indonesia nor with China. So we have to have a different mindset and different ecosystem for that.
I think that's what I said. I was insisting that Finance Commission will do something on this. As you rightly said, it's a state subject. States need to be improved. I mean, state need to be shown carrot and stick policy. Otherwise, they don't do it. So there are many places they have done well, right? I think this is one area. Otherwise you do so many things, investment summits and all that thing, but you may sign hundreds of agreements. How many, becomes reality? Again, every business fellows know about it, what are the constraints that particular state is having. You may have a photo of everything, but ultimately the fact of markets has to be clear. That is more important. And I agree with you that technology also, that's a slightly bigger subject altogether.
Yeah, the lady in green, yes. Ma'am, can you please use the mic? Just push the button. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So my question to you is, we see a lot of efforts towards the consolidation of public sector banks. We hear that, the number will come down maybe till 2, 3 or 4. So, but you have different views. So I'd just like to listen a little more from your point of view. And in that context, how do you see the private sector banks, how do they take a road ahead for their growth and expansion? Thank you.
Yeah, for this I used to give only one number. We talk about financial inclusion, right? I think for maybe 60 years we talked about financial inclusion, RBI, everybody talked about it. And one fine day, Honorable Prime Minister came out with the Jan Dhan scheme. Now you have seen, I think the way the banks have penetrated or the bank accounts penetrated, I think it's a world record in my view. I mean, you could have not done this 60 years and you have done in 1 year time. Now, in that number, again, I remember that I keep telling about this photocopy only for this purpose. When the Honorable Prime Minister was doing this, on the stage there are at least 50% of the people are from the private sector banks. I don't want to name them. But then, in 6 months' time, if you look at the statistics, out of all the Jan Dhan accounts, 99% of Jan Dhan accounts is held by public sector banks. What happened to that 50% people who have taken the photo with the Prime Minister? I'm really blunt on this particular aspect. Now, where are they? Now you force public sector banks, push the managers to go to tribal areas, rural areas, open the bank account, otherwise your cash transfer cannot happen. Now everything is linked to the banks. Where is private sector here? So I think if you want to really sustain, see, one of the big things happened in this country in the last 7, 8 years again is the kind of efficiency in the public delivery mechanism. And the crux of the story is the banking sector. Now if you say that public sector banks will reduce, then who will do this? I mean that narrative of, public sector banks are not declaring this profit, that I think they have a much bigger responsibility than transferring undivided profits to the central government. Okay, they have a much bigger responsibility. So I think I'm absolutely clear on that part, that we need to have more banks, more penetration by the public sector.
We'll have to pause here.
Question one we can ask for the online.
Okay, one online question DG sir is saying we can take. So there's a question on what do you think is the impact of US deal, because it happened after the budget and the economic survey. So are we looking at a higher growth number beyond 7%?
That was so easy for us because when that US imposed tariff, we all did analysis and we said about 0.4% decline in GDP. Now you are reverted, so you add 0.4%.
So
so that's the most easy way to do that. In fact, yesterday one newspaper asked me what so you don't think much because it's a symmetric. When you put 50% tariff, you get 0.4% loss of GDP. That's what we estimated. If you remove, then you add that 4.4%. No, I think on a serious note, although we are talking about 6.8 to 7.2% GDP for the next year, I wrote somewhere it's a conservative in my view. Even for the current year, we should expect a upward revision of 7% to more than that. Now, with this reversal of US tariffs, obviously these numbers will go up. And even for the next year, I'm seeing somewhere close to 7.3 to 7.5%.
Okay.
So, and plus there is one more risk for all these GDP numbers. The mother of all these GDP numbers is that there's going to be a different GDP numbers from February 26th. There's going to be revision in the overall GDP. There's going to be a new base year of 22-23. So you're going to see a completely different GDP numbers altogether. So I think all this estimate that we have seen in the budget, you might have to relook at depending on the kind of revision that happens.
Okay.
So right now we are talking about 2011-12 base. Now February 27th onwards, we are going to have a 2022-23 base. So we'll have a different numbers altogether.
Okay.
So it is safe to say whichever number you want as a GDP growth for the next year.
So on that optimistic note, we'll probably take up a few more questions later. Now I would like to invite the Deloitte team on the dais for making a presentation on the intricacies of the budget. Divya Baveja is already here. I would like to invite Ms. Shelvi Singhal, partner Deloitte, Ms. Saloni Roy, partner Deloitte, Ms. Mosmi Sakya, and Mr. Nitin Bejal. I request all the Deloitte team to please take their place on the dais, and I hand over the platform to Divya now.
So, good morning, everyone. After this, interesting discussion on economics, I think I learned a lot from Professor Bhanumurthy. So we move to another world of tax, which may not be as interesting as economics or economic survey. So when we looked at the tax this time, I think the focus of the government was, or the finance minister was more on how do we really do ease of doing, ease of compliance, to bring about more transparency and to see how the processes can be eased out. There were some demands from the industry which were met. So without delving more into that, I'll invite Shelvi to talk about, some changes from a corporate tax perspective. Shelvi, over to you.
Welcome everyone. So let's now come out of the policy and the regulatory discussions and let's see what's there in the budget. Starting from the corporate tax slides, there has been no change in the tax rate whatsoever. However, there were certain surprises which came as a part of it, which was largely on the MAT. Now MAT, whatever is to be paid would be the final tax. So it means there would not be any carry forward would be allowed after 1st April 2026. Interestingly, even the MAT which has been accumulated till 31st March 2026 would be only allowed to be settled off if we move into a new regime. So there is a clearly taxpayers are encouraged to adopt the new tax regime, though the MAT rate is also being reduced from 15 to 14%. If you see examples on the screen, there is a scenario 1 where the SSE continues to remain under the normal provision, and there is a scenario 2 where we plan to move to the new regime, but we continue to stay for some time in the old regime itself. So if you see, if there was a MAT credit available of 3 lakh rupees, for example, still my MAT liability was there was a high liability under the normal tax provision, but MAT credit can't be utilized. So the tax payable would be higher if we continue to stay under the old regime as well. For foreign companies, interestingly, the MAT credit set-off is allowed to the extent of the excess of the normal tax over MAT, whereas in case of the domestic companies, it has been capped to the 1/4 of the tax liability. There has been certain more amendment for the non-resident companies which were coming under the presumptive scheme to be excluded from MAT. Moving forward from large incentives which came largely as a part of the budget was around the data center, but again targeting the foreign companies. Though the finance minister talked about the foreign companies rendering cloud services,
but there has been no mention in the fine print of the what kind of the services they would be rendering. It only just says the foreign companies rendering services. However, the mandatory condition is that it needs to avail the data center services from Indian company, and the data center has to be based in India, owned and operated by Indian company only. Interestingly, one more insight which was hidden in the fine print was the the foreign company has to be notified by the central government. So apart from the specified data center to be notified by the central government in one of the schemes approved by MITI, it has to be, foreign company also needs to be notified. However, to make it, not only to make this entire tax exempt for 21 years, which is to align with Viksit Bharat initiative of the government, it is also provided that the transfer pricing provision. So in this example, assume the Indian company which is providing those data center services is in India. There the transfer pricing provision of cost plus 15% of safe harbor is being introduced. So there is no litigation around that how much tax needs to be paid by the Indian company or the foreign company. So in overall scenario, the foreign companies are exempt. The Indian companies are also going to pay taxes on cost plus 15%. The one more interesting thing, what happens if customers are based in India? The government wanted to ensure that we retain our fair share of taxes and profits in India. Therefore, the mandatory condition which has come that Indian reseller entity has to be there. So in case there is any domestic sales in India, foreign company needs to have an Indian reseller, which will then in turn will sell to the customer. However, the budget is silent what would needs to be the profit of that Indian reseller, because typically in the reseller, the distribution business, the margin can't be the cost plus 15%. So that is one more clarity and clarification which would be required. Otherwise, it will again open up the Pandora of litigations between the foreign companies and the Indian government, how the Indian sellers are being remunerated in India. Moving next, there are two sides of incentives which also came. Largely, there is to promote the electronics tool manufacturing in India. Again, the foreign companies will enjoy the tax holiday. However, this tax holiday is only for the purpose of 5 years. It will be applicable in case of income which is arising on supply of the capital goods, equipment or any tooling equipment to the Indian contract manufacturer. However, those Indian contract manufacturers has to be in the custom bonded warehousing, and they should be rendering these services to the foreign company for a consideration or for a fee. And the capex and whatever the machinery which comes to India could be owned by the foreign company. However, the control and directions needs to remain within the Indian company to extend that Indian company can control the business as well. Coming to the last tax holiday which came for IFFC, interestingly, the PSUs in this sector has been seen ahead of the private sector whenever we had the talk with the GIFT City, especially on the GRCT centers and other centers. So government has aligned the vision as well, and now the tax holiday for IFSC units would be extended not only for the 10 years, but now it would be 20 years out of the 25 years. For offshore banking units, that has been only from 10 years to 20 years. After that, for tax holiday period also, the tax rate has also been brought down at 15%. So now it is even a better rate as compared to concession tax regime, which is coming around 22%. For units which are commencing operation post or after 1st April 2026, government has to ensure that we don't start splitting and reconstructing and reorganizing our existing businesses and go and set up in the GIFT City. So therefore, they have included a restriction that units should not be formed by splitting or reconstruction of the reorganization of the existing businesses. There is one more interesting amendment which has been made in the existing provision for deemed dividend, because largely in the GIFT City we have seen there is a lot of fundraising which is happening, and loans and advances which will come from these GIFT City entities maybe to the domestic jurisdictions as well, or may go to the offshore jurisdictions as well. Government has said there is only one exemption in case of deemed dividend, where the loans has been advanced by the treasury unit which is being set up in the GIFT City. Parent company needs to be listed on a stock exchange in a notified jurisdiction outside India. The notified jurisdictions is yet to come. And thirdly is that the units to whom the loans is given are also based outside India. So in all other cases, if the treasury units are giving loans and if they have accumulated profits, the taxability under the deemed dividend provisions will arise. Now coming through the most talked amendment of, I think, for the last 10 years, which has been happening on the buyback tax. If you recall, the erstwhile law was buyback tax was taxed for the companies at the rate of 20%, and it was exempt in the hands of the shareholder. However, the current law, which was changed a couple of years back, the buyback proceeds were then taxed as a dividend, and in those cases, they were taxed on a gross basis. In those cases, the non-resident shareholders were able to avail the treaty benefit. And if you recall, the treaty usually provides 10 to 15% rates on dividend, which was lower than the cap gain tax rate. However, Indian corporates were getting taxed at 25% or 35% in case of the individuals as well. Cost benefit was available, but not as a deduction from the dividend cost, but it was allowed for the future set-off. Now, in the new budget proposal, Finance Minister has announced that to protect the interest of the minority shareholders, we are realigning it again, and now it will be again taxable as a capital gains, again taxed on the net basis, which means we will be able to claim as a cost benefit will be available to them because it will be net income getting taxed. However, the additional clause has been introduced because the promoters, especially the Indian corporate promoters who have more sway in the companies, will be able to get these incomes out by way of buyback tax to ensure that interest additional tax has been imposed on the promoters. So if your promoter is an Indian corporate, then it will be 22% tax rate. However, in other companies, it would be 30% tax rate. To give you a simple example how the buyback equals capital gains, how the scenario looks like when we were in the dividend tax regime and how we are in the proposed cap gain tax regime. So for foreign corporate promoter, earlier the treaty rate, like I mentioned, was between 5, 10 or 15%. Now they are suddenly moving to the cap gains of 32.76% because in those scenarios, the cap gains, though they are getting taxed on net basis, but the tax rate is very high. For Indian corporate promoters, the applicable rate was earlier 25%, still 25%. But though cap gain regime would be better because now they are getting the benefit of the cost. Thirdly, for coming to say in an Indian corporate promoter, which is a holding company, the only difference we need to see is that holding company also needs to now repatriate this money to their shareholders. So there could be the additional repatriation cost in those scenarios. Lastly, in case of the resident individual promoters, the applicate rate was again earlier 35.88%, still 35.88%, but with the added advantage of cost benefit in the same year itself. Lastly, for non-promoter groups or for FPI or minority non-resident shareholders where they were actually also availing the benefit of the treaty, now the treaty benefit has gone. It is now getting taxed at the cap rates, which would be 13.65 effective tax rate. For lower tax, for long-term cap gains, 21.84% for short-term capital gains. So consider this looks like in each of the independent scenario, depending upon whether the promoter is an Indian company or a foreign company, whether it's an individual, whether it's a corporate, the regimes will vary. For some people, the dividend tax regime were beneficial. For some, the capital gain tax regimes are actually coming better. So now one more incentive which has been given for the professional services to encourage more pool of the global talent to come and work in India, since we want to promote the data center, the AI, all other emerging techs, and even the R&D needs to come in the manufacturing sector as well. The government wants the foreign pool to come and work in India. In those cases, the non-resident individuals, for their income which is actually accruing and arising outside India, but however get taxed because if they stay in India and the stay is more than the threshold limits, in those cases, they will be able to claim a tax exemption only on the global incomes, not on Indian incomes, for 5 consecutive years. However, these services needs to be in connection with notified schemes. So it is not an open-ended exemption to all the non-resident individuals which are coming to India, but it would be in connection with some specified notified scheme which will be prescribed by the government in coming time. Now coming to the withholding tax provision, largely we have not seen much procedural amendment on withholding tax provision. However, the manpower supply, which looked like was a miss in New Income Tax Act, that was always there as a part of the contract service under 194C. The same has also been specifically now again included in New Income Tax as well. And rate has also been aligned similar to the earlier tax, which was 1% or 2%. Government has also announced one more thing in context of the lower withholding tax certificates, that now you can have an online filing of application even for the small taxpayers, and authorities would be required to reject or accept based on subjectment of fulfillment of the condition. However, those conditions, the taxpayers has not yet been defined. So we have to see more the rules and regulations or the forms which come out on these to define how much this will benefit to the individual taxpayers as well. Secondly, now the relaxation which was there for the purpose of the TAN, it is also no longer required even if the property is purchased from a non-resident seller. Earlier, this was only available if the property was purchased from a resident seller. Now it is also extended for the non-resident sellers as well. Lastly, in terms of the declaration for non-deduction to the depository, so investors which are earning incomes from various multiple units and securities, either in nature of dividend incomes or interest income which is coming through depositories, can now file a single declaration with the depository for non-deduction, who will then in turn will provide such declaration to the persons responsible for paying it. So it will simplify the hassle of providing those declarations to the multiple units as well as the multiple securities funds. Now it could be centralized along with the declaration with the depository. Rationalization of the withholding tax and TCS rate. So we have seen only two rationalization as far as the TDS rates are concerned. The TDS on interest on compensation amount, which is awarded by the Motor Accidents Claim Tribunal. Now in case of individual, there are no TDS and no monetary limit as well. However, in case of other than individuals, there is no TDS if the aggregate interest does not exceed 50,000. In case of the TDS of interest, earlier the exemption was only granted if it was paid or credited to a banking company. Now the same exemption is also extended if the interest is paid to the cooperative society engaged in the business of banking as well. So they want to bring the banks and the cooperative society which is in the business of banking at a par. So therefore a lot of exemptions have also been announced for them, but that is also a larger amendment for them for no withholding in those cases. Coming to the TCS rate, it looks like finally the plea of the taxpayers having multiple sections, multiple rates have been heard, and now most of the rates has been centralized around 2%. So there is some cases where TCS rate has actually been increased. In case of scrap sale, earlier it was only 1%, now it has been increased to 2%. But the beneficial amendment which has come for the remittance under the LRS scheme, in case of educational or the medical treatment, earlier it was 5%, now it is only 2%. All other cases it continues to remain at 20%. In case of the sale of overseas tour program packages, earlier the amount was below up to 10 lakhs, it was 5%, above 10 lakhs, it was 20%. Now limits has been taken away with, it is only 2% in all the cases. Because always the agenda of these TCS transaction was to collect more data and to get more people under the tax regime rather than actually collecting taxes at source itself. So government has aligned that with the overall objective, and they will still come under the tax regime by 2% tax collection at source itself. Now let's go to some transfer pricing amendments, because the governments really wanted to focus on the IT growth engine in India, and they also wanted to enhance safe harbor coverage to reduce the disputes. So now the IT definition has been included and even increased to include software developments, ITES, KPOs, contract R&Ds, all in relation to the software development. In those cases, 15.5% safe harbor margin has already been proposed. Eligibility threshold has now been enhanced to INR 20 billion. Rule-based approvals, automated approvals are likely to come, and it will be valid for 5 years. Though the detailed rules and the provisions around it needs to come into the picture. Similarly, like I mentioned for the data services earlier also, safe harbor has been introduced. It would be cost plus 15% safe harbor margin has been proposed. In the electronic manufacturing segment as well, where the benefit was extended to the non-resident in a bonded warehouse, now it could be done at a profit margin of 2% of the invoice value, which even the finance minister gave in her speech that it would result into 0.7% of the tax. 2% of the profit value multiplied by 35% tax rate, that is the lowest tax which any non-resident can have in India.
Exactly, safe harbor.
So, so in case you have a transaction with the foreign companies, Indian company needs to earn a margins at an arm's length. So those cases, what happens, there would be always a litigation. I would say 10%, government will say 20%. So government has brought in this concept of safe harbor, where government has upfront given that in these businesses, if you're earning these margins, then those are okay. There will not be any litigations around it. In transfer pricing, there have been other significant amendments. Now the advanced pricing arrangements with the foreign companies, there could be unilateral APAs could also be done for IT services. Now the requirement is to conclude these APAs within 2 years, only with an extension of 6 months at the taxpayer's request. Now, even post-APA conclusion, the facility of modified return is also being now made available to the overseas and even the non-resident taxpayers whose income and liabilities correspondingly modified as well. So this enables now those taxpayers who are not party to the APA but part of the transaction itself can now claim the refunds of or pay their additional or the withholding taxes. All of this will be applicable only from the financial year 26-27, which means all the EPAs which will be now concluded post on and after 1st April 2026. In transfer pricing, there was a lot of litigation around what is the due date of transfer pricing order. Largely, this controversy was in the cases of if you have a leap year, if you don't have a leap year, then whether it is 31st January or whether it's the 30th January. The government has interestingly brought down retrospective amendment in the old law, which is going to be discontinued after 31st March in the new law as well. So now they have aligned and redefined those due dates. For all those due dates, it will be now 31st January. In earlier cases, where some of the cases were getting barred by 31st December, in those cases now it was 31st October. So they have redefined all of those due dates, so there is no ambiguity around the due dates. Now coming back to the other larger corporate tax amendments, return filing timelines. Much has changed in this world. Most of the timelines are the same except in one, where the taxpayers who are having a business or a professional income whose accounts are not required to be audited under Income Tax Act or under any law, and the partners of the firm whose accounts are also again not required to be audited by Income Tax Act or under law, there the extension has been granted for 1 month. Instead of 31st July, now it will be 31st August. All other return filing timelines will continue to remain the same. Coming back to what has happened in the tax administration world, the assessment proceedings, reassessment proceeding, what has been included or removed therein. So for reassessment proceedings, earlier the concept of modified return or updated return was only allowed in other cases. However, now the modified return and updated return can also be filed if there is a reassessment proceedings which has been initiated. However, if you want to go ahead with the updated return, the government have asked for the additional 10% tax to be paid along with the tax as well interest if you have to file the updated return as well. Coming to the tax settlement controversy and assessments, most of these decisions were actually pending before high courts or Supreme Courts. Like I said, government again made retrospective amendment in these provisions saying that for reassessment proceeding, assessing officer includes judicial assessing officer as well as the faceless assessing officer. So the cases where the taxpayers were arguing if the assessments are being conducted by judicial officer, it is incorrect or it is invalid, all of those controversies are now settled by the budget itself. Extended timelines for the completion of assessment proceedings under the DRP route will now supersede the general timelines of 12 months provided under the Income Tax Act. Lastly, there was one larger decision which was pending before the Supreme Court, where it was held that if there is a mistake or there is a defect in quoting the DIN number by the assessing officer, then assessment itself and that order itself becomes invalid. Government has specifically introduced a provision saying that such mistake, defect or omission will not make the order invalid. So all of those controversies has already put to rest now. Coming to the prosecution, most of the prosecution proceedings have been taken down. So for example, for decriminalization of tedious non-compliance, if the payment was done in kind. Similarly, decriminalization has been done for failure to produce books of accounts. Wherever there was lot of rigorous imprisonment extended up to 7 years and or with fine, all of them has been converted largely into the simple imprisonment with 2 years or 3 years or even 6 months in some cases. Even the prosecution provision will not apply in case of the foreign assets other than the real property where the aggregate value does not exceed 20 lakhs. So to some extent, government has made relaxation in the prosecution proceedings as well. Moving next, interestingly, for prepayment of the tax demand has been now announced to reduce from 20% to 10%, and 10% has to be calculated on the core tax demand. Though the fine print is awaited, this would largely should come as a part of the CBDT circular and all, but this has been announced, which would be a welcome move for a lot of taxpayers considering the quantum of litigation we have in India. The time limit for completing the block assessment has also been rationalized and reduced now to the 18 months. Interestingly, now there is no more deduction would be allowed against the dividend income in case there is a commission expenses or there is any interest expense which has been incurred to earn such income. So there would not be any deduction. So to that extent, the dividend incomes and the incomes which has been earned from the mutual fund units has to be offered on gross basis without any deductions. Deduction of employee contributions have been now extended. The due date earlier for it was a due date under the law. Now it has been extended as if it has been done till the filing of the due date of the filing of the return. So deduction would be allowed. Now it won't be any permanent loss. Lastly, coming to the penalty provisions, one of the major announcements and major relief would I say has been given to the taxpayer is now there will be only one single order for assessment as well as penalty. So there won't be two proceedings, one going for assessment, another going for penalty. Now it will be combined and made as a part of the one single proceeding itself. There would not be any interest which would be charged for delay in payment of demand, which is arising out of the penalty till the date order is either passed by CIT appeals or by ITAT in case of the DRP. In fact, the immunity which was there earlier only for the purpose of underreporting of income, now that has also been extended to misreporting of the income. So if there is a case which has been held to be a misreporting of income where the penalty was 200%, you can file an application and can get an immunity. But in those cases, the additional tax has to be paid to 100%. So it's not a full immunity per se. The government has been asking to deposit 100% tax, 100% penalty in lieu of 200% penalty for non-reporting, for misreporting of the cases. For cases of unexplained credits, incomes or assets, earlier the tax rate which was proposed was 60%, was very high as compared to normal corporate tax. It has been reduced from 60% to 30%. In fact, the separate penalty has also been merged within the misreporting framework. And in those cases also where there is an unexplained incomes, which is largely credits or unexplained assets, could also get immunity provided the 120% of the taxes has been paid on the same. Lastly, most of the penalties which were not having either an upper limit or was more given a context of the penalty has now been converted as a part of the fees. So for example, the failure to get the accounts audited, now there would be a graded fee of 75,000 for 1 month delay and 1,50,000 thereafter. Similarly, for non-furnishing your transfer pricing report, now also there would be graded fee of 50,000 and 1 lakh. In case of non-furnishing of SFT, the penalty is again being converted into the fee. And interestingly, even in case of there is a revised return which needs to be filed post 31st December, the extension has come for 3 months, but there is also a fee which is levied for 1,000 or 5,000 rupees, depending on the case, it is to be filed. So now this is more from the direct tax. Now I will hand over to Saloni for Lakshmi for indirect taxes, and I think we will take the questions afterwards. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's nice to be here again. Like Professor Bhanumurthy mentioned, he's been visiting for multiple years, and so has the Deloitte team. And we're really fortunate to have this opportunity and look forward to discussing with you on the indirect tax changes in the budget. So essentially, indirect tax covers GST as well as customs. GST, the changes were principally around the GST Council suggestions. So whatever decisions were made in the GST Council meeting, the legislative changes, so the changes in the law were what was mentioned in this year's finance bill. So we have that. I'll just... Then there were customs related changes. There were certain announcements on customs. There were certain mentions by the finance minister in her speech, which we found did not have, mention actually in the fine print. So it was not there in the documents which accompanied the budget document. So maybe this will come in a while. So just to give a perspective, there was this concept, so I'll just take you through some of these announcements, and then I will request my colleague Moshimi to take us through more detail and in depth. So intermediary services, this is something that, especially cross-border transactions, this was challenged by the GST authorities. There is over 3,000 crores of litigation on this specific aspect, whether a particular service activity, so marketing services, agency services, facilitating services, these were the kind of services that were covered under intermediary. There was always a doubt whether it is an export activity or whether it is a taxable activity which attracts 18%. So there's a big difference, 18% versus export, which is zero rated, and you also get a refund. So there's been a change in the law as far as intermediary. This will now be treated as, the place of supply will be treated as where the recipient is. So if the recipient is overseas, place of supply will be overseas. So provided that payment comes in foreign currency, this should be treated as an export activity. On post-sale discounts, there was, again, litigation, and there were difficulties also regarding post-sale discounts. These post-sale discounts were essentially situations where, there were schemes that were announced, and then so the government wanted, an agreement upfront before, a discount, if a discount is given, so that there can be a change later in the GST amount that is payable. So they wanted this agreement. It was not possible to do it subsequently, whereas trade actually used to do it, subsequently, and this has become practically challenging to, so to address concerns of trade, this has been allowed, where credit notes can be issued even without a pre-existing agreement, and but there needs to be a declaration which is provided by the recipient that they have reversed credit. So this is a practical aspect. For inverted duty structure, there has been announcement that 90% provisional refund will be available upfront. Inverted duty structure typically happens when the final rate of GST is lower, your output is lower, then there's a build-up of credit. So your inputs
have a higher rate. So maybe your final rate is say 5%, but your inputs attract, say they earlier attracted 12, 18. Generally the rate of GST is 18. So there used to be a buildup of tax, and therefore, but this facility of inverted duty structure refund is only available for goods. It could also exist for services, but this refund is only available for goods and not for services. Then we also have the authority for advanced ruling. So this was an appellate authority. Essentially, there are situations where there could be different conflicting rulings which are given by different advanced ruling authorities. So we have many benches of the advanced ruling body, but not all benches take the same decision. So in case of conflicting decisions, they were having a national appellate body constituted, but there it still hasn't been constituted so far. So they in the interim they have suggested, it has been proposed that the tribunal, GST tribunal, even GST tribunal is yet to be actually set up, but what they have said is the National Appellate Tribunal, it matters can go to the GST tribunal. There has been a concern for SEZs that when they clear goods from the SEZ for domestic consumption, the duty that is charged, the customs duty, it is charged on the entire value of the item that is, which we debone, which we clear for domestic consumption. This is at variance with the law for if it is manufactured, say, under the bonded warehouse scheme, or if it is in an EOU where it is only a deferment and you pay duty only on that portion where you have actually imported and there's been imported inputs, so there's been a disconnect. So this was something which was mentioned by the finance minister, but we didn't see it in the documents. So we expect that this change will come in the SEZ Act. Maybe later, maybe when the foreign trade policy, when there are announcements made regarding the foreign trade policy, this change may also come, because SEZ is largely governed by Ministry of Commerce, and the finance, ministry looks at, tax rates really. Also, there was this scheme under Customs, Authorized Economic Operator. There are different categories of authorized economic operator. What authorized economic operator does is that it gives you a recognition, and if you are depending on whether you're tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you get different benefits. So if you're a tier 2 or tier 3 AEO, authorized economic operator, then you are eligible for duty deferment. So which means really that when you're importing goods, you need not pay customs duty at that time. You can pay it on a deferred basis. So 15 days deferment was allowed. Now that is going to be made after 30 days. So that's what is being proposed. There have been challenges with the authorized economic operator scheme. There have been many, there's been a push by the customs authorities that, organizations which are, so it's basically trying, it was something that was initiated globally after 9/11. So this is a global concept. So after 9/11, essentially, so that we have a stronger supply chain, stronger trust-based mechanism, recognizing, importers who are genuine. So AEO as a concept was initiated. So it's a concept which is there in different countries. India also adopts it, but it has of late become challenging to get this recognition of AEO. So there are certain conditions that need to be complied with. So we were hoping that, the finance minister would speak about customs revamp. She spoke about it sometime back, around a couple of months ago. There was a summit where she mentioned that customs would get revamped. We have a new income tax law. We have GST also. GST was introduced in 2017, and then we had GST 2.0, but customs hasn't seen much change. So we've seen changes, so service tax, excise, that has been done away with VAT, we have GST, but customs broadly remains the way it was originally introduced. So this needs some ramping up, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Cargo clearances, there is a trust-based and risk-based approach which is being spoken of by the finance minister. Warehousing, also movement of goods between bonded warehouses will also be allowed without getting any approvals from the customs authorities. So bonded warehouse is a concept where you can store goods which are not without paying customs duty. So they're unpaid. They're not with customs duty paid. So bonded essentially means that they're not released for domestic consumption. They are in a bonded area. When they get released for domestic consumption, that means they have suffered customs duty as well. And then it becomes part of the domestic economy. So movement from one bonded warehouse to another bonded warehouse happens at times. It could be that goods are required for a particular purpose. There may be capital goods, there may be inputs. Inputs are required for manufacturing at a different bonded warehouse. So there could be different reasons why movement is required. Earlier we needed to get approval. Now this is a procedural simplification which has been proposed, that no approval is required. Then there have been some changes in courier, e-commerce, baggage rules. Maushami will take us through them in more detail. Regarding baggage, I just wanted to mention baggage rules. The last baggage rules were introduced in 2016, and now it's been 10 years. Baggage rules really govern if us or others as individuals are bringing goods from overseas into India. So there are certain allowances. There's a free allowance, baggage free allowance. So earlier the limit used to be 50,000. Now from 50,000 they made it 75,000. Considering that from 10 years, after 10 years, they've only done like just an increase of, it is from 50,000, it has been made 75,000. Then there are certain, aspects regarding gold. Like there is a limit. There used to be a limit and a value. The grammage used to be prescribed as well as a limit, a value of the. Now that value has been done away, but the grammage has been mentioned. And there's a different limit for women, different for men. So, considering that women have maybe consume more jewelry, so there are different. So we'll go through some of these more interesting aspects, and I'm going to request Maushami to come and take us through more detail. Maushami?
Thanks, Shelvi Saloni, for the previous sessions, and good afternoon all. Hope you all are having a great session till now. So it is a privilege to be speaking in front of all of you today. Saloni has already covered the indirect tax announcement on a high level, so I'm gonna add on the additional bit and do a bit of deep dive on those proposals and the changes. Intermediary services now basically. The change here is the place of supply for intermediary was earlier based on where the location of the service provider is. So for example, if there is an agent in India, intermediary is typically an agent or a broker for services. It can be for goods also, but this issue was predominantly for services industry. If there is an agent or a broker or a person who performs those kind of activities, and the place of supply is then considered to be in India, even if the services are provided to an overseas customer or an overseas parent. So department used to therefore take this provision, and they have issued a lot of notices to all the service providers who are supporting basically their overseas parents, and they say you're an intermediary, whether it is on merit true or not true. So this has led to a lot of litigation, as Saloni mentioned. So now going forward, what has happened is intermediary definition or as a concept continues under GST law, but the place of supply will no longer be the location of the service provider. It will be the location of service recipient, which means that if the services are received by an overseas customer or a parent, it will be equivalent to the benefit or it will be equivalent to meet the conditions of export of services, and therefore those service providers will be able to get the benefit of GST at zero rate. So this is the summary of this change. This is a very welcome move for industry, particularly for services industry. There has been a lot of representation around this. This is supposed to be effective from the date the bill will be enacted. However, there are some talks that they could be at an earlier date like 1st of April, but we are not sure about the effective date as of now. As of now, it is the enactment of the finance bill. Now, moving on to the next change, which is on post-supply discounts. Now, what again this change entails is Section 15 of the Central GST Act talks about what should be the value of a supply. Basically, what is the transaction value of a supply? Now, there was another clause under that section which says under particular following scenarios, if you are offering discounts, this should not be the part of the value of supply. One of the condition was that if you are giving discounts on account of a pre-agreed agreement, and then you can link it to the invoice which was issued earlier, then those discounts should be excluded from the value of tax. Basically, the net is that you can get GST benefit to that extent. So for example, value is 100, you are giving 10 discounts, so you pay GST only on 90. However, the way the definition or the condition was termed, it was very complex to prove that it is pre-agreed, it is based on pre-agreed terms. So again, these were the complexities industry was facing. Now that has been pre-agreement condition has been done away with, and they have simply said if you are giving discount by way of a credit note, and then it is also mandated that a recipient is reversing the input tax credit on the original invoice, then that the adjustment from your output tax liability should be available to the supplier. So this is what it says. Now this also links up to section 34, which talks about how credit notes should be issued, on what conditions credit note should be issued, and what happens when a credit note is issued. So when a credit note is issued, as a recipient, you need to reverse the input tax credit on the original invoice, or to that extent. But with IMS coming into place, these processes are now quite automated. So therefore, I think this is also a very welcome move because of post-sale discounts and volume discounts, which typically happens after the supply. Taxpayers or traders or manufacturers are facing difficulty in getting benefit of GST discount adjustment on those values. So this should help that to go overcome that challenge. Now this change will be through a notification, and this is yet to be notified. Provisional refund of inverted duty structure. So there is a provision where we get provisional refund of export, refund on account of export of services. That was already in existence. Now to that section, they have added also inverted duty structure. Earlier, there was no provision of getting a provisional refund on inverted duty structure, and that will be also to the extent of 90%. Now this 90% was earlier there, but last year after the 56th council meeting, which happened on early September, they have expedited this process, and now whenever you are filing a refund, the objective is to be assess those applications on certain risk parameters. And if the risk parameter is low, you are expected to get a 90% refund within 15 days timeline. So that's what's the objective with which these provisions are made. For export of services, this was already there. Now they have added inverted duty structure scenarios. As Saloni mentioned, inverted duty structure is only available in case of inputs, a GST on inputs where your GST rate on input is higher than your outward supply. There has been representation to include capital goods and services as well, but this has not come through yet. So right now, if any of you, inverted duties, particularly in fertilizer, renewable energy sector, these are the textile, these are the sectors which are facing this issue, and this welcome move already came, in last year itself. But this change is to give you provisional refund. Earlier, the refund provision was already introduced.
So once again,
Yeah.
you said investor tax structure in fertilizers, no?
Yeah.
Does it, it means that input tax is 5%, output tax is 5%. So where is the question of inverted tax structure in fertilizer? It is a matter of realization of the sale price partially from Government of India without GST. So does it really fall under the definition of inverted tax structure? Is a big confusion for us.
For fertilizers, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, you're right. I just highlighted that these are the industries which could be facing this inverted duty scenarios.
Oh.
But in your case, you're saying there is another inverted duty, but there is another discussion.
Yeah, rate remains the same.
Rate, yeah.
A portion of the amount realized from the Government of India
Correct.
without the GST boilings down to the problem.
Right. If you do not have an inverted duty scenario, then this provision is not applicable to you. If you are from fertilizer, because you are from the industry, and if you have that scenario, this will be applicable. However, to your point, there was one earlier provision which they had introduced, is that inverted duty of if your input and output is same, then it is not applicable. So I think that is
that is interpretation
that
department
is what
gives.
you are talking about. Yeah. So that was there. So I think it is a larger discussion. We can cover this in the question answer session.
I think this zero rated supply is included for the skill development training courses by approved training partners to the government at zero rate, while they are receiving services from the unapproved training partners. That refund is also considered in this.
So, inverted duty structure is not available if your outward supply is nil or exempt.
Yes.
So, we need to understand the particular outward liability for you, whether it is exempt or nil. I understand you said zero tax, but does it mean actually it's exempt because of a particular notification?
These services are covered under exemption
So
notification.
you will not be getting the benefits of inverted duty structure.
I'll request, I know it is, the question comes up, if we can keep it for the Q&A session later. Yes.
So we have a bit of more to cover, but yes, of course, these questions are very interesting and we are here to take as much as we can. We also have a Q&A session for that. Yeah. So the next change is, again, this inverted duty provisional refund, this has to be notified. We are still waiting for the notification. Next is, again, Saloni has covered this, just that here the government says that any authority will be empowered by notification. It is to be effective from 1st of April, but we are still awaiting the notification for this. So this notification hasn't come through. Central excise related proposals, I'm just going to quickly go through this. The first one, NCCD, which is applicable on certain risk products like tobacco, etc. There is no change in the effective duty rate, but NCCD, which is applicable on central excise, in addition to central excise, they have made certain rationalization, but at the same time keeping the effective duty rate change, which is same, which is 25%. This is effective from 1st of May 2026. Central excise duty exemption with respect to biogas CBG in blended CNG. So what was happening, was the case was that biogas CBG, it is covered under GST, but CNG is not under GST. However, when you pay central excise on CNG, biogas and CBG value was also included for your customs excise duty computation. Now there is an exemption that biogas CBG value plus the GST applicable on that, which was already existing earlier, that should be excluded for the purpose of computing your accessible value under central excise. So this is the change, and this is already effective from 2nd of February. There were also earlier proposals to increase the central excise duty on unblended diesel of 2 rupees per litre was proposed, but now this has been deferred till 31st of March 2028. So no change in diesel rate. Custom duty updates, yes, there has been a lot of progressive announcements and a lot of automation and strengthening the technology and the central processing system has been announced. So apart from that, one of the key change here is that for authorized economic operators and also certain eligible manufacturer importers, which is yet to be defined, there was a deferred duty pay. This is also applicable for authorized public undertakings. They had a deferred duty payment facility of 15 days earlier. Now that has been enhanced to 30 days. In addition, this facility will also be extended to eligible manufacturers, importers. The difference is for AEO, there is no timeline for this 30 days deferment, but for eligible manufacturer importer, this is till 31st of March 2028. Now, who will be these eligible manufacturer? They have defined that they are manufacturer importers, but we have to still see if there will be another class added to this. Public undertaking is there. Change in the warehousing framework, Saloni has mentioned. Just a quick bit here is that now this will be very much dependent on the warehouse operator. Earlier, you need to take a prior approval from the custom officer that I want to move from a bonded warehouse to another bonded warehouse. Now it is based on whatever report the warehouse operator is going to provide. There is no expected to be any intervention with or interaction with the custom officer. This is what is the objective and the plan. We need to see how when we implement this, in practical. SEZ related, the announcement says there will be a one-time relief. However, and also it is only for manufacturers. So we need to understand what happens to those units, service units in SEZs. They also clear their capital goods or certain assets from SEZ to DTA. Will it be available to them as well? We are not sure. We understand the modalities are being worked around, and we have to wait to understand this better till the scheme is announced. Under customs, there is also a facility of going for an advance ruling under the customs law. The validity of this customs ruling as on date used to be 3 years. Now this has been extended to 5 years. And if anybody has a customs advance ruling, which is for 3 years, you can make an application and request it to be extended till 5 years. This 5 years will be valid from the day it was announced. So for example, if it was announced for you in 2020, so this so let's say 2023, so you will get an extension in 28. Otherwise, it could have expired for you in 20, whatever the earlier timeline was. So this slide talks mostly about the trade facilitation measures which they have announced and they have talked about. So there is this integrated customs system which has been rolled out, and it is expected to go live in a 2 years time. This platform is supposed to be a single platform where all the agencies of the government will be participating for different activities. Like for example, if there is a bill of entry which is to be approved, there is one authority who has to do it. If DGFT has a role to play in that shipment import, DGFT will do that role. So there is a one integrated platform which is being is under the works. And this is interconnected single window. The announcement has been that it is to be rolled out by end of FY27, but we do not have exact dates. The other thing is, on a pilot basis, they have already started clearance of food items, drug, plant, animal and wildlife clearances. They are doing it already operational from April 2026. That through that portal which they are working upon, that integrated portal. Changes relating to courier, e-commerce and baggage facilitation. Earlier for exports, we couldn't do export of goods which had a value more than 10 lakhs. But now this has been, cap is proposed to be removed, and this should be beneficial for MSMEs. However, there is also another condition here that for that export you should not have a GR waiver. So those nitty-gritties needs to be examined. But anybody who wants to export through courier and the value is beyond 10 lakhs, now we are good to go ahead with it. The other nitty-gritties of course needs to be seen. And this also is expected to benefit the e-commerce exporters by enabling faster, simpler, more efficient access to the global market. Again, similarly, this should also reform in clearance of returned and rejected consignments. There is a proposal for that. There is a reform which has been announced. New baggage rules are introduced to enhance duty-free allowances and bring them in line with present-day travel realities. So what happens is if somebody went abroad, stayed for 3 years, they're coming back with household items like microwave oven, some other electronic items. So those rules have now become up to date, like as on current date. So there is an entire rule which has been now revised and issued, and this is for personal benefit, and it will be interesting to see all of those in detail. Cargo clearance and risk management reform. So you all must have heard that during the budget speech, Finance Minister kept saying it is a trust-based system. So it is trust-based, and also but at the same time how to manage the risk. So they are going for a trust-based system, but also we as taxpayers have to also keep in mind that there will be a risk assessment at the back end happening. So there is a automated registration of goods and automated out of charge which has been introduced to optimize. This was earlier also introduced, but now this has been done. Earlier it was only for AO tier 2 and tier 3. Now it is for all importers. It has been expanded to all importers. Earlier it was to limited importers. This facility will be provided to tier 2, tier 3, it's already been there. Approve eligible manufacturer importers having a long-standing supply chain, and importer availing the facility of direct port delivery, where there is no compliance requirement. Then a system-based examination application to be introduced on IceGate for rescheduling of physical examination of imported goods. So these provisions which I'm reading through, it shows that there will be minimal human intervention and it will be mostly through system. The last, we have just put together a snapshot of the tariff changes. We have tried to put it sector-wise. Renewable, these are the items where till February 1st, there were some applicable custom BCD at different rates, but from 2nd of February, it has become nil. The one is specified capital goods for manufacture of lithium-ion cells for BESS. BESS is battery storage for energy sectors. Then sodium antimonate for use in manufacture of solar gas. Potassium hydroxide, there is an increase from nil to 7.5%. Aviation component parts, including engine of aircraft for manufacture of aircraft, it will become nil. Defense sector. So I'm just gonna quickly go through this. If you want me to stop in any of the items, we can stop, but I'm gonna just scan through this list. And I'm sure you all know already your products which are getting benefited or impacted by increase. So basically the items, these are renewable, critical, nuclear. There are other, we have tried to put which could be relevant for today's discussion. I'll take a minute for this and then I think I'm going to close. There is this notification 40/2005 of 2025, October 25. There were certain conditional concessions, exemptions and unconditional exemptions and concessions which were granted. Now around 11 entries of unconditional exemption concessional duty, they have lapsed on 2nd of February. So these have lapsed. 22 entries spanning across sectors, it will lapse by 31st of March. These sectors are medical devices, electronics and electrical equipment. And these are of conditional, these exemptions are all conditional in nature. And 102 other items will still continue to avail these concessions. These are conditional exemptions till 31st March 2028. So this is one key change, and this probably, if you're in manufacturing, some of you will get impacted by this. There is a whole list of it. I'm not gonna take your time on this, but we can discuss if there is anything particular during the Q&A session. So with that, I'm concluding the indirect tax session, and I'm going to request Divya and Nitin to take over.
Thanks, Mosmi. Well, on the personal tax front, I think there's nothing big to share about because we've already seen the relevant changes in the last year. So if you see, there's no tweaking in terms of the personal tax rates There's no change in the new regime or the old regime. So everything still continues to remain the same. But what they've done is that they've come out with some specific provisions which are focused more towards the undisclosed assets or assets situated overseas. And this is primarily focused on a such set of people who would have spent some time overseas or who are holding some assets, in an overseas jurisdiction. Intention is primarily to sort of come out clean and not create a fuss about it, and that's the reason why government has probably introduced this scheme. So the first part is more on the undisclosed foreign asset or the undisclosed foreign income, which means that if you've got any asset or any income that is in an overseas jurisdiction, which is basically a foreign asset or a foreign income, when it is undisclosed. So we have to bear in mind it is not an asset which probably you've disclosed. And it is also, if you read the definition that's come out under the law, it says that it's an undisclosed foreign asset or foreign income, which probably you don't have an explanation about. That means you can't explain what is the reason behind that acquiring that asset or having that income. That's the definition that's come out, and it is different from a foreign asset situated overseas. So hence what they're trying to do is that they've introduced a scheme. The scheme is likely to come into effect very soon. The date's not been notified. It will be applicable for a window of about 6 months. So in the first scenario, if you've got a foreign asset or an undisclosed foreign income, or it can be both. It can actually be both. It could be a foreign asset or a foreign income, vice versa, or it can be both of them. But the fact of the matter is that it has to be an undisclosed foreign asset. So there could be a situation where you don't have an explanation for it, or if the assessing officer has looked at your return and probably he comes out with a situation, he says that what is the reason behind it? I mean, how did you acquire it? So you don't have an answer for that. So this is basically to sort of look at those set of people and come out clean. But what they've done is that they've kept a limit of about 1 crore in this. And they've fixed it at 30% and 30% depending upon the income, whether it's an income or it's an asset, and it can be both. And then the penalty is equivalent to the amount of tax that you're paying in the above scenario. So this is more so in terms of an undisclosed foreign asset or an foreign income. The second situation is where you have a foreign asset that you acquired or a foreign income a foreign asset that you acquired overseas. While probably you were on an overseas, assignment, this was probably deemed. So if you read this number A, it says foreign asset acquired from income accruing or arising outside India by a non-resident assessee, but such assets were not declared by him in the scheduled FA on becoming a resident. And I'll come to the second point. While there is a requirement under the income tax return to disclose all your foreign assets. Even if, and this is primarily a situation where you become a resident, it is important for you to make a disclosure of such assets. If the same is not done, then there are penal provisions. Technically, it gets covered as part of the Black Money Act. But then there is a bit of relaxation that they've done last year also, which I will cover subsequently. So in the first scenario, if you have an asset that's been acquired from income accruing or rising outside India by a non-resident assessee, then you have a possibility where you can make a disclosure, and then they've capped the number at about 5 CR, and then just to pay a fees of about 1 lakh rupees. Second situation is where a foreign asset is acquired from income which has been offered to tax under the act by the assessee, but such assets were not declared. So it could be a situation where you have a stock option. A stock option which probably is appearing as part of your Form 16, and you have disclosed it by virtue of being a perquisite value. But having said that, there could be a situation that the asset is actually overseas, probably it's been given by an overseas entity, but you forgot to disclose that asset. So this is more so that kind of a situation. So they've capped it about 5 CR and a fee of about 1 lakh rupees has to be paid for it. This is the quantum or the percentage of people falling within this category is going to be limited. But yes, it was required to be clarified. It's a draconian clause. While you see the entire speech of the finance minister, the focus has been a lot on decriminalization, and that's the intention why they're sort of trying to do this. And then if you see the subsequent part, which is at the bottom of the slide, that talks about more in terms of relaxation from prosecution. And this is what was there last year when they had introduced this provision where they have capped it at 20 lakh rupees if you have not disclosed an asset or an income overseas. So they had capped it about 20 lakh, but it was only from a penal perspective. Prosecution was still there. So they have now introduced both penalty and prosecution as part of it. So that's why it's effective from October 1, 24. So this is more on that. Few things I think Shelby has already covered, but quickly I'll take you through this. I think this is a great provision in terms of the LRS scheme that's there. The TCS has been further reduced from 5 to 2%. Which makes sense because it's a substantial number. People actually take loans and then they sort of go and have their children educated in overseas jurisdiction. So this number has come down from 5 to 2%. The great part is that even in the past, when they introduced the scheme, you have the capability to go ahead and make a disclosure to your employer, and then the employer can also adjust that TCS as part of the 192 deduction that happened. And that's a very welcome move that happened last year. But now from 5 to 2% is also great. On the overseas tour programs also they have reduced the TCS rates from 5/20% to about 2%, which is again a big cheer from the tourism industry. This was the third bullet was expected long back. I think this is a great move. Because while we see a lot of the NRI population sitting overseas, they are selling properties to a person sitting in India. While we have a similar situation to a person who sells within India and is not a non-resident or a Indian resident technically, the overall process was very simple. Whereas in a situation where we have a non-resident, we had a TAN had to be applied. You had to go through a lot of processes. Even if it's a single transaction, even then you have to apply for a TAN. Now they are doing away with this entire thing. So I think that's a great move. And it is certainly going to get a lot of cheer from the NRI population. 15G and 15H is again a very good provision because that's basically now technically 15G and 15H we've seen in situations where we got senior citizens and who got a lesser amount of income, and then they sort of give their 15G and 15H to the bankers. They have to physically go there, do all that stuff. Now what they've done is that if you are able to give this information by virtue of 15G and H to the investor, so when it says that investors can file TDS exemption through the depository, I think the scheme is more focused on going into the NSDL or the CSDSL, where you can just sort of file it over there and it goes to all the mutual funds. So that's a great news. How that will happen, I think they'll probably come out with the overall mechanism, but I'm sure this will get implemented easily, and this will help a lot of people, because then physically moving across doing all of this stuff was not easy. And then, sort of going to all mutual funds and everything is a great move. Option to file application for nil low withholding on income tax electronic 195 section, this has been available electronically also. Income tax returns, Shelby had already covered, so I'm not going to focus on that. Rest, I think there are not too many things in terms of the income tax slab rates. We've seen that there are no change. I mean, while we were expecting that there could be a change in the standard deduction and we might see 80D benefits probably come into the new regime, because the intention of the government we are seeing is more to focus on the new regime and hence to make it more user friendly. But having said that, we haven't seen anything on that. There is a 5-year exemption that they have proposed for income accruing outside India for individuals visiting India for rendering services in connection with any notified scheme of the central government subject to conditions. Now this is while this notification has come out, they've brought this out. The finer details of that have to still come out, because we still don't know what kind of schemes are they talking about, what kind of industry are we talking about. It could probably be a global capability centers, which the focus is a lot on. So if there are people who are going to come here, if they've got income overseas, which is not any which ways sourced from India, because anything that they earn in India by virtue of a salary is technically sourced in India. But having said that, if they've got income overseas and if it is foreign source, then it probably will not be taxable in situations where they become ordinary residents. So that's great news, but we have to see how it shapes up and what they bring out in the finer print. Interest received, I think this is also good because in terms of the motor accident claims that are there, where you receive that from a legal heir, received by a legal heir, there is no taxability on that. Finally, I think this is a change in terms of we've seen in the past in Provident Fund 7.5 lakhs, anything above 7.5 lakh, where they had sort of picked up superannuation Provident Fund NPS, and that if the threshold is crossing 7.5, then taxability happens, and it gets taxable in your hands. In Provident Fund, we see that our statements which come out, they carry that tax deducted at source, so that has to be considered. But the anomaly that was existing was that in a situation where your 12% Provident Fund that was being contributed, if that exceeds, let's say if you have a 14% situation, then that 2% was also being taxed, since anything above 7.5 was also being taxed. So there was a double taxation. So they've removed that. It will be only restricted to 7.5 and above. That's about it. So this is primarily more on personal tax, and I'll be available on the dais to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
So we are happy to answer any questions. We have about 20 minutes. So yeah, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Deloitte team, for a very insightful presentation. We open the floor for questions. Please use the mic ahead of you to answer the question, to ask the questions. You have a gentleman there. Can you please switch on the mic, introduce yourself, and ask the question?
Namaskar. I am M.K. Mishra, General Manager from MMTC. I have one single question. Recently, Government of India has declared that the gratuity payable to an employee in case of retirement or death from 20 lakh to 25 lakh. Now the question arises, up to 20 lakh as per the notification 2018 notification, up to 20 lakh there was no tax. Now it has increased to 25 lakh because the DA has reached more than 50%. The question arises that when this 5 lakh tax will be eliminated.
See, let me answer that. So I think we should see some amendment, because unless that amendment comes, we will have to go with 20 lakhs. So I think earlier they had linked it to an amount which was under Payment of Gratuity Act. So hopefully we will see some clarification or circular which will increase the limit also, yeah.
One resentment also I have. I am working in a PSU. In the income tax purpose, they have clubbed private sector and PSU in the same category. Whereas people who are working in central government, they have kept in a different category. And for them, 25 lakh is no income tax. That means exemption is already available there. Whereas for private sector and PSU, that 5 lakh additional amount being payable is subject to tax. So this is a bit disparity.
Yeah, as I said, I think this ambiguity or maybe inadvertent. So hopefully we'll have a circular which will link it to what is there under the Payment of Gratuity Act.
The circular comes after some time, last
yeah.
month, if you see, it takes 3 to 4 months.
Yes, so I think we can expect something on that, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any other question that we have from the audience?
Yes,
yeah,
I am Sambunandan from Oil India. It is a very good move, as explained by Salini, that IFSC 80LA precisely is getting extended by another 10 years. So 20 years out of a block of 25 years. So it is a very good move, providing long-term visibility on the taxability of an unit in IFSC. But it comes with a rider that reorganization or transfer taking place on or after 1st April 26 will not qualify for this particular benefit. But what does these wordings, reorganization and transfer, would cover? What kind of instances it might cover? Because if I narrow down my question, that the Indian companies over the years has created special purpose entities in various jurisdictions, be it Singapore, Netherlands, for acquiring assets and holding investments in other third countries, basically for tax efficiency and ease of operation. Whether relocating those holding structure from from Singapore or Netherlands to Gift City, to IFSC units in Gift City, whether that will tantamount to this reorganization or transfer, or it will be it can be termed as new investment.
So interestingly, like always, government has not defined what it means splitting up, reorganization and all, but we have seen the similar clauses was there for ATIA and other provisions as well, where there were any tax holidays was introduced. Interestingly, in IFSC, the reason why government wants us to reallocate people from other jurisdictions, for sure, like we want them to come from UAE, Singapore, Mauritius, back to India. But the intention which largely looks like it is that, for example, you're already sitting in a domestic region, which is in India, and now we start splitting those entities and start the same function or the same division, which was part of a domestic regime only for the pure purpose of getting tax exemptions. So we split up from the domestic region and start sending those people there. For overseas jurisdiction, we can still argue, I would say this is not defined, but we can still try to argue it's not really a reorganization, because we are not saving any taxes in India per se, because anyways those Netherlands, all those entities were not taxable in India at that point of time. But yes, it has to be tested through the, I would say, the litigation parameters, whether they really could be reorganizations and or not. But just in those cases also, I understand your Netherlands entity would always be a separate entity.
Suppose we are holding from India, then through Netherlands to a third country. Suppose we want to do away with the holding through Netherlands. We straightway will hold from, say, Gift City, IFSC, to that third country investment, which will become second country basically.
Yes.
So whether that will tantamount to reorganization, or whether that our IFSC unit will be eligible for ATLA.
It needs to be tested. Because
who will be able to give us clear understanding? Is it ISCA or the Revenue Department?
It has to be Revenue Department, because they are the one who is introducing this deduction and this issue as a part of it.
And by what time this clarification is likely to come?
I don't think so there is any clarification still issued by the department on ATIU section where the similar provision was there. So it was tested always by the law of the courts and the facts of each and every SSC. So getting clarification from Revenue Department, my sense would be very, very less.
See, I think what will be required in this case is to see, as Shelby said, under ATIA there were provisions, or under ATI also, there were provisions that if any unit is formed by splitting up of an existing unit, then this exemption will be denied, or that holiday will be denied. I think you have to see what are the principles which are emerging from those rulings and apply to your case. For example, if you say that I was holding through Netherlands another entity, I think one will really need to understand that what was the rationale, what was the role that was being played through Netherlands entity, or what was direct. Is it a treaty abuse or was it not a treaty abuse? So one will have to look at this whole transaction in totality and then see what is the whether this how the benefits can be taken or it need not be taken. So I think one will have to look at the whole transaction in totality, and in your case, or in this case, I would not say your case, in this case from a treaty abuse perspective also, and then the principles which are laid down under the ATI or ATIA ruling. So that is where we'll have to see and then come to a conclusion on that.
Thank you. Okay. And regarding the inverted duty structure things he was explaining, so whether I could hear it properly or not, I don't know. But the thing is that earlier also service was not input tax on services were not eligible for refund. So that same position is continuing.
Yes, it continues. It's only for inputs, any tax paid on inputs.
Only goods.
Only goods. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Johnson from HR, which is into the fertilizer business, and part of our business is that we import fertilizers and sell in the market. So when I import fertilizers, we pay 5% IGST, which is available for the input rate. Of course, we pay another 5% BCD, which is cost to my business, and the 5% IGST what we pay, that is available for me to take input credit. And apart from this, while doing this business, we also deploy ancillary services like lifting, shifting, and customs house clearance, transportation of the material, of those things. And on that, we pay 18% GST. Right, on the product we pay import rate of 5%, on the ancillary services we pay 18%. When I come to the sale, I sell this product at, let us say, with 10% margin, we sell it at 100 rupees, metal at 110 rupees. And out of 110 rupees, 40% I realize from the dealer and 60% I realize from Government of India in the form of subsidy without the GST. Right, so this this model gets into a scenario of accumulation of input rate at the end of the day for me. So does it really fall inverted tax structure? Because on the services I am paying 18% and paying on the product 5%.
So for inverted duty structure, the law only considers a tax which is paid on inputs. So it doesn't consider input services. So while your credit accumulation may be higher because on services it is 18%.
Yes.
It is not considered for the inverted duty structure. Though practically net it might be the case that you have credit accumulation, but you're not eligible for a refund. You're not eligible for that inverted duty structure benefit. No.
Okay.
Yeah, so any more questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Myself, Sachin Agarwal from TCIL. I have a query regarding a new tax regime. Suppose the company has opted a taxation for new tax regime and the company is only having income from PGBP. Suppose the income arises under capital gain, having a tax rate lower than the rate mentioned in new tax regime. What will be the tax rate for that capital gain?
So you will have a long-term tax gain or a short-term capital?
Long-term.
Long-term. For those, the rates are already defined.
Already defined. That is lower than the normal rate as per new tax regime. Okay. Suppose 25.16% is the normal tax rate and 10% is the capital gain tax rate.
Okay. But then in those cases, we anyways compare the MAT liability, total MAT liability,
yes,
which anyways comes on the book profit, which also include your capital gain items.
Yes.
And then we compare it to the total tax liability. For the purpose of normal tax liability, your rate remains the same, which is the cap gain rates. For MAT liability, the rates will come under whatever is under that.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess so far there are no more questions, but I'm sure you'll go back and review this and come back. Okay, you have another question, please go ahead.
In PPD, there is a term National Authority of Advance Ruling, which the government will constitute. Till then, Authority of Advance Ruling will be applicable. In that case, whether a company can sort ruling from authority which have not jurisdiction. Suppose Delhi Advance Ruling Authority has ruled out something on an issue, whether the same issue can be taken by the Maharashtra Authority of Advance Ruling till constitution of National Authority of Advance Ruling.
So a taxpayer, there are certain eligible categories of persons who can approach the Advance Ruling Authority. So if you are eligible, then you can approach the Advance Ruling Authority. You need to say where you are registered, and that bench will have a jurisdiction over a particular area. So you can approach. You could approach both. Maybe you've got an unfavorable ruling in Delhi. There's no restriction or bar that you can't approach, say, the Maharashtra Advanced Ruling. As long as you have the ability, you are eligible to file application for Advanced Ruling. There's no bar.
So, just to add, are you asking about the new national authority which will be formed?
Actually, we are not satisfied with the ruling of the Delhi Advance Ruling Authority.
Right.
And we have challenged the same in High
Another
Court.
state, right?
Yes.
High Court.
High Court.
Okay.
But the case is not yet listed. Whether the same issue can be brought towards other authorities of other states as the same projects are being executed in other states also.
Yeah, so if you have a registration in other states, as Sloni mentioned, you can definitely go. Now that National Authority of Advanced Ruling, which we just spoke about, so because the advanced ruling of different states are giving conflicting decisions on the same matter, so it is already in the law that there should be a national authority of appellate level where you can appeal after appellate advanced ruling. So that authority is also going to be formed from 1st of April 2026. This has to be notified, but they have already put it in the bill now because the original plan had not taken shape. But in the meantime, as Sloni mentioned, if you have a registration in another state and if you meet all the requirements, you can go for an advanced ruling in another state as well.
But what will be the effect if the ruling will be different from the other authority? What should we do?
Yeah, so the aspect is, it is applicable to that particular registration where you get the ruling. So whatever ruling you get, say if you get a favorable ruling in Maharashtra, it will be applicable for the registration.
But as a PSU, we cannot take two stands. For one thing, we cannot take two stands.
Therefore,
this gentleman in grey.
We cannot take two stands for a single case, one in different, one in one state and say on same issue, different stand in the other state.
Other states.
So what I'm coming to is the advanced ruling is applicable to that particular registration. Whatever the order is, yeah, that is applicable. It's binding. And if you disagree with that, you can go to the High Court or you go to the appellate forum if there is an appellate forum. While I agree with your perspective that as a PSU, I mean in any organization you can't take different positions to run an organization. Everyone is this, one is that. But I understand that you don't agree with the ruling that has come from the Delhi Advanced Ruling Authority, which is why you're having this concern. Can I approach another advanced ruling? Maybe you could get a favorable and then that would help you in your High Court matter in Delhi. It could help. But this would need to be discussed and, an approach developed. Yes.
Thank you.
So with this, we come to the end of today's session. And if you have any more queries, you can always write to us. Our email IDs are available with you. And we thank the Deloitte team for being so kind and generous again and making a very insightful presentation and also taking on their queries. They're available here and outside in case you have some queries, but request you to not make it very specific and personal. Kindly keep it general. You can always take their opinions later. No, so thank you everyone. Thank you Deloitte team. We have DG sir and Pradeep sir and all the dignitaries here. We are very thankful for your time, and thank you audience for such a patience listening. The lunch is served. You're cordially invited to join for the same. Thank you.